taking that time. Oh, the clock is incorrect, huh?
Eric, can you turn your mic on for us? Thank you, sir.
Welcome to the March meeting of the Village of Pinehurst Historic Preservation Commission. The purpose of the commission is to decide applications for certificates of appropriateness for new construction or major work within the Pinehurst Historic District, and to do so by conducting hearings and making findings of fact when such applications come before us. By law, the commission is directed to take no action except to prevent construction or alterations that would be incongruous with the special character of the historic district. I am Eric Von Salzen, the chair of the commission, and I'll ask each commissioner, starting from my far left, to state his or her name for the record.
Richard Vincent.
Thomas Schroeder.
Terry Lurch.
Ann Lucy.
David Herring.
We have one member, Mr. Taylor, absent, but we have a quorum, so we can proceed. Also present are Peter Hughes, senior planner, and Jill, I'm afraid I can't remember your last name.
There you go.
I couldn't spell it either. Our first order of business is to review and approve the minutes of our last meeting. All commissioners have been provided with copies of the draft minutes. Does any commissioner have any changes to suggest?
Yeah, I have one, please. I just wanted to note that I wanted to qualify that my nay or no for the hotel was based on scale. If we could, please.
For my benefit, can you just state what page that's on so we can make sure that we get in the right page?
Yeah, it was the last one. It was the COA, you mean, number? Huh? Is that what you're looking for, the 20?
Not the number, just what page number the
Oh, page
corrections
7?
needed on.
Or it was actually on page 8,
Page 8, okay.
if somebody said 8.
And you just want to make it sure that it reflects scale as the issue?
Yes, please.
Thank you, Miss Ann.
That's in both instances, because you voted.
Sorry?
That's in both instances, because there's
Yes.
two votes
yeah.
on that.
Yes.
Okay. I just, clarification.
Sure. Yep.
All right, that change will be made. Any other changes to suggest? Otherwise, may I have a motion to approve the minutes as amended?
I make such a motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Say nay. Minutes are approved. May I now have a motion to enter the public hearing?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Their discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Unanimous. We are now in the public hearing. This is a quasi-judicial hearing. That means that anyone desiring to testify must be sworn in, and the commission is required to consider only facts presented in this hearing. Proceedings are video recorded. I ask the commissioners if they have visited any of the sites on our docket today and whether they have had any ex parte communications with respect to any of the cases we'll be considering today, starting with Mr. Vincent.
Visited all the sites, no ex parte communication.
I visited all the sites and just want to put on the record that I received an email in reference to one of the cases in here, and that I read about the first half of the sentence, realized it was part of this, and immediately stopped reading and put it in the archive section so that I wouldn't see it over again. I do not believe it to be a conflict.
Thank you.
I visited all the sites and no ex parte communication.
Let the record show Mr. Taylor has joined us.
Apologies, did not manage to navigate the traffic circle as well as I might. I visited all the sites as well. Full disclosure, my wife and I are friends with one of the applicants, And when I went to that site, they were home. I asked for permission to go to the back of the yard, and we had a modest conversation. I believe there's no conflict of interest.
Thank you. I visited all the sites, have no conflicts, and no ex parte communications.
I visited all the sites, no ex parte communication or conflicts of interest.
I visited all, no communication.
In each case that the commission will hear this afternoon, Mr. Hughes will first present a summary of the application, staff's evaluation of the extent to which the application complies with the commission's standards for such an application, or raises issues that require further information, the staff's comments on the application, and where appropriate, the staff's recommendations for commission action. The application and its supporting documents, as well as the staff's detailed reports, will then be entered into the record. Commissioners will then have an opportunity to question Mr. Hughes about his report and testimony. Next, the applicant or the applicant's representatives will have an opportunity to provide any additional information supporting the application and to address any questions or issues identified in Mr. Hughes' testimony. Commissioners will then have an opportunity to question the applicant witnesses. After the applicant's presentation, if any member of the public wishes to present any evidence, either in support of or in opposition to the application, please come forward at that time and identify yourself. I will swear you in and give you an opportunity to present any reasons why you believe that the application should be granted or denied. Please remember, the commission is interested in facts that will help us decide whether the proposed work would be congruous with the special character of the Pinehurst Historic District. As chair, I have the right to exclude testimony that isn't relevant to that subject, but I'm not required to do so. Commissioners will then have an opportunity to question the public witness about the testimony. If the applicant or Mr. Hughes wishes to respond to the public testimony, I will permit them to do so. We will now proceed to our first case, and I will swear in Mr. Hughes. Mr. Hughes, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you shall give to the commission with respect to all the cases on our docket today shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
The purpose of this public hearing is to consider a request for a major certificate of appropriateness within the Pinehurst Historic District for exterior modifications at 15 Carolina Vista. Modifications include removal of existing street panels and installation of sliding doors to fit the existing opening. The property can be further identified in Moore County Registry by Moore County Tax Registry by Moore County PIN number 855-200-950-403. The property owners of record are James and Elizabeth Fisher, and the applicant is Staggert and Chow. This is the front elevation photo of 15 Carolina Vista as it is today. The work that's being done today is going to be done on the rear of the property. This request is before the commission because the applicant is proposing an addition of windows and doors that don't currently exist, but they will fit the existing openings. 50 Carolina Vista is approved. If approved, would still be a contributing structure. 50 Carolina Vista or Little House is a colonial revival dwelling and has approximately 7 previous major COAs issued for the property. In total, 7 properties were notified for today's hearing. This is the notification map. As you can see, there are 2 vacant parcels that are there. The one to the left is actually owned by the owners of 15 Carolina Vista. The rest in red are the ones that were notified. And then the hash is 15 Carolina Vista. This is provided site plan by the applicant. I apologize about the blown upness of it. I was trying to get it to be shown on screen. As you can see in the hatch there on the rear property where it's facing away from all streets is the proposed work on the rear of the property. This is what's existing today. On the left, you have what's on the rear profile. On the right, you have the top right one, which is the right, and on the bottom of the left with the chimney, those are the existing elevations today. And here's what they're going to be if approved. So we see the introduction of new windows and doors that fit the existing openings, including the new triangle fixed glass panels there at the top that you see on the rear elevation, and all the doors that are currently there, or sorry, all the screens that are currently there will be replaced with glass doors. This is a photo of what's existing today from the rear. This is from the right side of the property, and this is from the left, as I said, with the chimney. This is the proposed materials for the application. They're matching all existing, except for obviously the new windows. The new windows will be a Pella aluminum wood series, white to match existing windows on the facade. At this time, staff would like to submit the following into the record: staff report, presentation, application, applicant's material, photos, site plans, and findings of fact.
Without objection, the materials referred to by Mr. Hughes are admitted into the record. Is the applicant or the applicant's representative present?
They are.
I'd like to come forward, please. Before you sit down, would you raise your right hand? Do you swear that the testimony you will give in this proceeding is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you. Please state your name and spell your last name for the record.
My name is Teresita Chow. Last name is spelled C-H-A-O. I'm one of the principal architects of Staggett and Chow Architects.
Thank you. Please be seated. You've heard Mr. Hughes's summary of your application. Is there anything you would like to add or detract from that presentation?
Yes, I would like to add, first of all, good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, and all members of the commission. I just would like to expand a little bit about the project. The existing screen porch faces the swimming pool, which has a nice view and use of the backyard. Our client would like to be able to use this space on a year-round basis, and that's the reason why we would like to enclose it and make it a conditioned space. We are very sensitive to the nature and the structure, existing structure, and we tried our very best to complement what's there. No structure, existing structure, is touched. Basically, as it was brought up by Mr. Hughes, we are just enclosing the spaces in between existing columns.
All right, thank you. I hadn't asked the commissioners if they had any questions of Mr. Hughes before we proceed with Ms. Chow. Anybody have any questions for him? Do you have any questions for Ms. Chow?
I just would note, in the staff report, it said it wasn't clear whether there were sliding doors. They are sliding doors, right? Yeah, but it's in the rear, so it doesn't matter.
That is correct, and the guidelines allows for sliding glass doors in the rear.
Any other questions from the commissioners? In that case, is there any member of the public who wishes to present any evidence either in support of or in opposition to this application? If so, please come forward. Seeing none. If the commissioners have no questions, further questions of either the applicant witness or Mr. Hughes, we can proceed to deliberations.
I'd like to make a motion.
Very good.
I move that the Historic Preservation Commission find the major work at 15.
David.
Speak into the mic.
Oh, beg pardon. I move that the Historic Preservation Commission find the proposed major work at 15 Carolina Vista congruous with the Pinehurst Historic District and consistent with the Historic District's
I
standards.
don't think it is.
I'm going to finish my motion. if you will.
Inconsistent.
Based on the testimony.
Which way?
With sliding glass doors, it's inconsistent.
Allowed if they're not
Terry,
street facing.
Terry, we're in the middle of a motion.
Oh, okay. Well, I just,
with the Historic District standards based on the testimony given, the material submitted, and the findings of fact.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Discussion. Terry?
I made the point already, I'm sorry.
Well, no, you're really not on.
Okay.
Your point is that because they're sliding glass doors, they violate our guidelines. Is that correct?
Right.
Which
Correct.
guideline are you referring to?
I withdraw my objection.
Okay. Any further discussion? Prepared for a vote on the motion as made? I'll proceed around the room. Richard?
Yes.
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 Yes?
Yes?
Yes.
Motion has been approved. And do you have a second motion?
I move that the Historic Preservation Commission approve a certificate of appropriateness for the proposed major work at 15 Carolina Vista Drive.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? I'll poll the commissioners.
Yes.
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 Yes?
Yes.
Motion has been unanimously approved. Thank you. You have your certificate of appropriateness.
Thank you.
All right, you are the applicant, I take it? Okay. Would you raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you will give in this proceeding is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? And will you state your name and please spell your last name for the record? Okay. Please be seated.
The purpose of this public hearing is to consider a request for a major certificate of appropriateness within the Pinehurst Historic District for exterior modifications at 45 McLeod Road. Modifications include an addition to the structure, addition of a screened-in patio, addition of a fire pit, addition of a chimney, and addition of a rear yard patio. The property can be further identified in Moore County Tax Registry by Moore County PIN number 856-206-287859. The property owners of record are Richard and Carla Keating, and the applicant is Cribbs Construction. This is a front elevation photo of 45 McLeod Road. The request is before the commission because based on what's being requested, they are considered major work items. New construction, additions, eliminating, adding windows, and adjustments to roof lines are all major work items that must be approved by the Historic Preservation Commission. 45 McLeod Road is not listed as contributing structure. None of the adjacent properties are listed as a contributing structure. And approximately 4 COAs have been previously approved with a major COA in 2017. The applicant has submitted a material package which includes a complete application, elevations, building material samples, and site plan. The commission is only reviewing the proposed changes to the previous approved, that's for the next case. Apologies. This is the notified properties. In total, there were 8 notified properties. As you can see, none of the properties are listed as contributing and not listed within the 1996 Landmark Historic Survey. This is the property notification map for 45 McLeod. 45 McLeod is there again shown in the hash, and the red outlined areas are the properties that were notified because they are adjacent to the property. This is the submitted site plan. As you can see in the blue, that is the proposed area where the addition is going to go. The gray area is the proposed area for the screened-in porch. And then the stone area that's outlined there, that's the location of the rear yard patio and fire pit. Some modifications to what's been proposed. The rear elevation shown on the screen shows a shake chimney. The applicant, through conversations with staff, has decided to make that, instead of shake, make it stone all the way up. They can provide further testimony on that to the commission. It appears that all the windows that are being proposed as part of the addition are similar to existing windows on the structure. This is a rear elevation photo showing the area where the addition is going to go. As you can see, an existing pergola will be removed as a result of the addition, but you can also see that the existing windows are similar as to what has been proposed through the elevations that were submitted. This is a better photo of the rear elevation showing where that chimney is going to go, and then off to the left is where the screened-in porch is going to be located. The applicant has provided elevations, that's diagrams for the fireplace. This is the elevation that they showed. And then they also provided some examples of what it's going to look like once it's constructed for the commission's review. In total, it's going to be constructed out of stone as shown, which is congruous with consistent with our guidelines. On the screen now is the paint colors that have been selected. We have swatch 7031 Mega Grayish for the siding, and then the trim is swatch 7034 Status Bronze. This is this stone material that's been proposed for both, I believe, the chimney and the fire pit that's being located in the rear yard. This is the submitted material list that's been submitted by the applicant through our online permitting program. At this time, staff would like to submit the following on the record: staff report, presentation, application, applicant's materials, photo site plans, and findings of fact.
Without objection, the materials referred to by Mr. Hughes are admitted into the record. Do the commissioners have any questions for Mr. Hughes?
I have one.
Yes, sir.
The paint swatches, are those part of the palette?
Yes, sir, they are.
Thank you.
And Peter, in the application, it says that the chimney will be hardy shakes. That's the proposed material?
That was submitted prior to the adjustment. As discussed during the presentation, they're actually going to make the hardy shake into a stone, so they're no longer
okay.
going to be doing hardy.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any other questions for Mr. Hughes? Mr. Cribbs, what would you like to add in support of your application?
Peter's done a very thorough job with the presentation, and I don't have anything else to add.
Thank you. And you do confirm that the chimney will not be a boxed chimney?
Absolutely.
Any questions for Mr. Cribbs? All right. Is there any member of the public here who would like to be heard with respect to this application? If so, come forward and be sworn in. All right, hearing none, I believe that completes the presentation of the case, and it's time for deliberations. Who would like to start us off on deliberations or propose a motion?
I can make a motion.
Okay, so are we ready for a motion? I think so. Please proceed, Terry.
I move that the Historic Preservation Commission find the proposed major work at 45 McLeod Road congruous with the Pinehurst Historic District and consistent with historic district standards based on the testimony given and the materials submitted in the findings of fact.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion of the motion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to a vote. Richard?
Aye.
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 All right, Terry, would you like to make a second motion?
I move that the Historic Preservation Commission approve a certificate of appropriateness for the proposed major work at 45 McLeod Road.
Thank you.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion? Proceed to a vote. Richard?
Aye.
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 Congratulations, Mr. Cribbs. You have your certificate of appropriateness.
Thank you.
See you later, Chris.
I'm sorry? You're the applicant for 335 Linden, is that correct? Would you state your name, please?
Ed Johnson, Johnsson.
Very good. And raise your right hand. You swear or affirm that the testimony you will give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth. Thank you. Please be seated. Peter, would you like to present the case?
Yes, sir. The purpose of this public hearing is to consider a request within the Pinehurst Historic District for approval of modifications to a previously approved major certificate of appropriateness at 335 Linden Road. The property can be further identified in Moore County Tax Registry by Moore County PIN number 855-210-451-824. The property owner is of record and applicant is On-Site Homes. This is a front elevation following an inspection that staff has performed of 335 Linden Road. Today we're discussing the addition of a chimney to the rear elevation. The addition of a chimney is new construction, and it's also not compliant with what's recommended in the guidelines, which is that box chimneys are not appropriate in the historic district. So both those items are before the commission for consideration this evening. 335 Linden Road is not listed as construction structure. None of the adjacent properties are listed as construction structure. A previous COA, which allowed it to be constructed, was issued in May 2020 for construction of a new single-family home. The applicant has submitted a material package, which includes elevations, photos of existing structure, and a site plan. The applicant has matched the exterior materials of the chimney to the lap siding of the home. According to the historic district guidelines, box chimneys are not permitted. The chimney is not visible from the street, and the applicant has provided documentation of other chimneys within the historic district. In total, 10 properties were notified. 2 of those properties are outside the historic district, located on Varden Road, and none of the properties notified for tonight's meeting were considered contributing structures or listed in the National Historic Landmark Survey. This is the notification map for the properties listed. As you can see, in hatched again, 335 Linden Road is there in the center, and the adjacent properties are outlined in red. This was the previously approved elevations. The big red arrow is showing where that change is going to occur, and then we're going to switch it over, and a chimney shows up, and that's what was found by staff during the final inspection for a CO. And here's a blown-up version of the change as well. Here we see the chimney showing up on that right elevation of the home. In their previously approved plans, they did have a call out for a fireplace that was located on the rear. It wasn't shown in the elevations, but it was shown in their layout, or their floor plans. And here on their updated ones, they are showing again that floor plan of that chimney. This is the rear elevation existing, showing the box chimney from the rear, and this is a side picture of it as well. Here's another one, and in the application packet, the applicant submitted multiple photos of chimneys on Page Road that were also existing box road, and I'm happy to bring those up on Google Maps to show you the ones on Page Road, Graham Road, and Cadell Road. At this time, staff report, presentation, applicant's material, photo, site plans, and findings of fact are submitted into the record.
Without objection, the materials referred to by Mr. Hughes are admitted into the record. Do the commissioners have questions for Mr. Hughes?
I'd like to see the pictures that are being referred to.
They're not included in the packet? I apologize. Let me get those for you.
I don't think so.
They were? Okay. Grab those for you.
Well, I know it's in the package, I just don't know what you're referring to.
This is the photo from Page Road that was being referred to. This is the photo from Graham Road. This is 15 Graham. The previous one, I believe, was 45 or 60 Page Road. This is another Page Road property with a box chimney on the front elevation of the home. So these are examples of other homes within the historic district with box chimneys that are visible from the street. My staff report said that. I don't have that. That wasn't submitted by the applicant, but there is one on Medlin as well. There's one on Condell, and then there's one on 4 Village Lane as well. I'm happy to bring those up on Google if we need to. Okay. So there are 3 on Graham Road, and one of them is actually 4 Village Lane, but you see it on the rear side. Village Lane, and I apologize if I have to orientate myself. Which way is towards the club? Yeah. We're not gonna, I don't know if we're gonna be able to see the one at 4 Village Lane there. We are not on Google Earth, but we will be able to see the ones on Graham. Oh, sorry, we went past it. So it's boating up right there. It's not a great image of it, but that's the best we're going to do from that angle. Let's see if we can do a better one. You can see the chimney there shown on 15 Graham that was submitted photo through the trees. Sorry. And there's a better image of it, so
Ah,
that was
there
what
it
was
is.
submitted at 15 gram, and then 30 gram back here also has one that was not able to be seen there, but then there's also one on Cadell Road. I believe it's 50 Cadell Road. Right there. So that's a box chimney on the front. And then I think that would be the remainder that I was able to find as staff.
Peter, with respect to these box chimneys, do we know whether they were approved by this commission, or do they predate the commission?
I don't have that information, sir.
Peter, is there a simple explanation for why we don't like boxed, or why box chimneys are not unapproved?
There is not an explanation that I'm aware of. I do realize that it was something that was updated in the 2019 update to the guidelines that box chimneys were listed, but there's not any specific reason that I'm aware of that that was chosen.
I imagine it's because they look chintzy. It's an aesthetic judgment, which we may not all share, but that's my understanding of the way some people feel about box chimneys. Any other questions for Mr. Hughes?
And just as a practical matter, if the commission were to find this not, if the commission is not willing to issue a COA for this, what is the practical ramification of that?
So the commission could condition the approval if they so chose, to where they approve the chimney itself, but ask the chimney to meet the guidelines and not be boxed. So you could approve a chimney that's of a masonry finish. Worst case scenario, you could ask for the chimney to be taken down. And obviously, the last choice is denial, but they would have to come into compliance. So I would strongly encourage you to consider conditioning it with allowing them to do a masonry facade if you were not going to consider approving the box chimney.
Any other questions for Mr. Hughes?
This is, you can see it from the road right now, though, right? When you turn into, because it's on a corner and there's empty lots there right now.
Not a corner lot.
Well, I saw it. I don't know how I saw it then.
You can see it from Savile Road.
You're right. That's what I'm,
On an
yeah.
empty lot.
Yes, right, that's what I'm saying. So you can see it right now because the lots are empty.
Any other questions for Mr. Hughes? Mr. Johnson, would you like to add anything that you wish?
Well, the previous 45 McLeod previously was approved with the box chimney, and they're requesting a change. So obviously that a box chimney is not outside of the realm of approval from this committee.
I'm sorry, I didn't follow that.
45 McLeod, the previous home on the agenda this evening, was previously approved with the box chimney, and their application tonight was to change it to stone, if I.
Yeah, they
Yeah, so-
altered their request to stone.
They altered their request, it wasn't approved, was it?
It wasn't approved as a hardy shake, it was approved as a stone.
It was, okay.
Yeah.
They made that, so when you testify into the record and you say you're gonna make it stone, it becomes part of your request. They just didn't update their elevations to reflect that, but when they come in for permitting, they'll have to update their elevations to reflect what they testified to.
Anything further you'd like to add?
Generally speaking, I believe that with metal flues, masonry chimney is functionally unnecessary. And in this particular case, there are houses in the area that also have similar styled box chimneys. And I would hope that this similar consideration could be given to this home. That being said, I mean, obviously, we want to find a way to best meet the commission's requirements and avoid any type of issues down the road for these homeowners.
All right, any questions? I have a question, just so that we have a clear record. Originally, the plans that were submitted to us back in May of last year did not have any chimney, correct? And I assume that there was a fireplace, so I assume it was going to be an artificial fireplace?
That was an error on our architect's behalf, and we didn't move it. We did submit a revised drawing The front door additionally changed and some other things, items changed. In January, we thought when we submitted that was part of that submittal. That could be an error, administrative error on our part. And we were not aware of the chimney until attempting to get our final approval for CO with the commission.
Well, when you decided to add the chimney, what investigation did you make as to what kind of chimney would be allowed in this historic district?
The intention from the beginning was to have a chimney, and it was on the floor plan. It just was omitted by the architect on the elevations. That was an error and omission on our part. Our intention was always to have it being boxed, so that was our intention from the beginning.
If you had submitted those plans as you thought you had, when it came before us in May of last year, we would have had the same questions and issues and concerns that we have now. The difference would be that if we told you we won't approve your plans because you have a box chimney and we have a rule that says you can't have a box chimney, then you would have not built the building yet, so you would then be able to change your plans and build something else. Now you've gone ahead and you've built the building, and I gather, other than this one issue, it's been built in accordance with the approved plans. But on this one respect, you have done something that our guidelines say you shouldn't do. And so the question for us is, what do we do about it?
And I agree, we were absolutely in concurrence in that point, but I guess my question would be, we additionally submit floor plans to show windows, doors, other parts of a house that, say, a window was omitted on an elevation. I mean, in my mind, I look at the floor plan that was submitted and there's a fireplace. It was omitted. We're taking full responsibility for that on the elevations. I understand exactly what you're saying, 100%, and we would not have been in this situation, but I would imagine that if a window was, say, drawn on a plan that was not in the house, on either the elevation or the floor plan, one way or the other, that the window's either omitted or added. And so I guess our question, we would just like to find out what the easiest solution would be. Is it to veneer this chimney with brick? I mean, you know, is that what we need to do? Then we're going to do it. You know, if not, what is the solution? The homeowners want an exterior chimney. They paid for one. So, I mean, our intention is to install it. So whether that's resubmit another application or what the case would be, you know, we can do that.
I personally would prefer not to have a box chimney on a house in the historic district, and we have a rule against it. That's not my rule. So I think earlier Mr. Hughes indicated that a way of addressing this is to replace the box structure with something that's compliant with our requirements. And we could do that without requiring you to submit a new application. I believe that's correct, is it not?
That is correct, as long as the condition is that it remove the hardy plank board and replace with a masonry facade.
And excuse my ignorance, and I hope I'm not interrupting anybody, but is 335 Linden Road the end of the historic district on that side of the road?
No.
The new subdivision down on the street, the new subdivision is also on.
Yes, correct. Yeah.
The last lot inside the historic district on Linden Road is 605 Linden Road.
Okay.
Richard?
So I guess the question comes down to intent. Is the aesthetic of having everything siding now on the box, is that because the homeowners want that look? Or is that cost-driven as opposed to submitting something with stone or with masonry? I mean, this is what you all want, or is this driven by cost?
Homeowners are here, and I can't speak for them, but I would say that it's multifaceted in the fact that, I mean, there's a cost associated with everything, but I don't necessarily think that they said do not do it one way or the other. Typically, we have not built in. Part of it is lack of understanding of what those guidelines were. I agree 100% if the plan would have been, you know, absolutely right, which is, you know, something that we can deal with on our side with this, with Renaissance residential design, but we would have avoided this. So I don't necessarily think it's cost-driven per se. It is new construction, and that is much more likely what you would see, I feel like, in a spec, a for sale by builder spec home, whether it's in Pinehurst or if it's in
Okay, so where
Raleigh or
I'm going
whatever.
with that is,
Wake County.
the aesthetic is obviously what the homeowners want.
Yeah.
They want the look of matching the rest of the
They're
trim.
looking to have an outdoor living space with a fireplace
Okay.
that's operable.
Let them speak for themselves.
Are there any further questions, Mr. Johnson?
Eric, I would just say that following up on your line of thinking, and I recall that I mentioned this probably 6 months ago, and I don't propose we rediscuss it, but the mere fact that something exists that looks the same is not by itself make it congruous.
I agree, but let's hold that thought for our deliberations.
Oh,
Anything further for this witness? Is there any member of the public who wants to come forward and present evidence on this case?
Eric,
Give the homeowners.
by virtue of the fact that the homeowner is here, could we
Oh.
request the homeowner to speak up on their behalf?
Sure. Please come forward. Will you state your name for the record? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you will give in this proceeding is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Please be seated. What would you like to add to the record in this case?
Well, Council, we thank you for your time this afternoon and letting us speak here. So we've been residents of Pinehurst for almost 5 years now. We love it here. We plan to make this long-term home by our building of a new house. We recently adopted 2 children from Peru, which prompted us to build a new house because we needed more space. Per the question of what was the intent was like they mentioned, Mr. Johnson mentioned, it's a spec home. To be honest, we didn't do the due diligence of looking into the specifics of building in the historic district, and for that, we apologize. We do, however, thank you for your consideration and beg consideration for, which while we will absolutely comply with whatever the council deems necessary, we do beg you to consider allowing us to keep the chimney or alternatively the most cost-effective means, because this will put an additional financial hardship on us, which after building the house and adopting 2 kids is quite a lot to take on all at once. So again, we thank you for your time and just beg you for your consideration.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions for the homeowners?
Do you have any input?
Covered it, actually.
Fine, I just wanted to make sure.
Thank you. Is there any, no more questions for these witnesses? Is there any member of the public who would like to be heard in this case? Hearing none, I believe we can now turn to deliberations by the commission.
Like to make a motion?
Let's discuss and see if we have if we know how we want to proceed.
Well, in that case, I'll give you my 2 cents worth.
Please do.
I would have made a motion, and may still, that although inconsistent is congruous, looking at the architecture of the house, the color palette, the materials, all around. It appears to me that a chimney of that size and scale in the back of the elevation where you can't see it from the street, even though at the moment you can from the adjacent properties, is more in keeping than a stone chimney out of no connection to the rest of the structure. So even though inconsistent, I would call it most certainly congruous.
Richard?
And I'd agree with you. And there's a house in one, I'm not going to mention the name of it, it's a new house, but it's got a box chimney as well. It's built in the last 3 years on Everett Road, and there's countless houses. I'm not saying if there's one thing that makes it congruent, but when you can build a case, and a pretty strong case of 10-plus more properties in the village, you've got a lot of backing behind that argument. So I'd echo what David said and add the fact that I think they've made a really good case for showing other box chimneys within the village of Pinehurst.
I'll throw in my 2 cents. It's a little bit different. I believe that this commission ought to take its own guidelines seriously. And we have a guideline that says, with no ifs, ands, or buts, no box chimneys in the historic district. I think that it was obviously an oversight that this didn't come before us when we approved the plans for this house, but nevertheless, that's what happened. I believe that what Peter has suggested in terms of a solution would both maintain the integrity of our guidelines and not put an unfair burden on either the homeowner or the developer.
Well, I have a question, seeing as financial issue was raised. Is the burden on, who's the burden on? Just kind of curious, since it was raised as an issue. It was a spec home?
Well, no, I mean, the lot was for sale, we purchased it. Meredith and I do work together in various other real estate transactions, and I mean, it was essentially a pre-sale after the fact. I mean, everything's pre-sale now. So. But yes, ma'am, we purchased a lot with intent to build the house on-site, purchased it, it was listed.
So if the box is not permitted,
Question, ma'am. We've closed on the house. We're financially responsible for it at this point, so it would be on us.
Just a second. Can we have you come to the mic? We're having a hard time picking up on the video recording. I apologize.
I couldn't hear the question, so it's. But yeah, the Morskys have closed on the home. That's now their house. Yes, ma'am.
You don't have a COA for it, though.
They don't. They have a temp CO right now that was granted because they met all the building code requirements, and the last piece was the zoning requirement, which was the COA. So they're here today to get a COA approval so that they can get a complete CO for their house.
and what is the, but what is the cost of, what would the cost be if it were to be changed out?
$1.25 brick, probably. You know, material, labor to put it out, tear this stuff down. I'd have to figure out square footage of brick there, but a few $1,000s.
$2,000?
Few, I'm not positive, a few.
A few thousand.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what the requirements are going to be. I mean, are you talking about the 3 exterior sides? I mean, this is a man-made fireplace. So, I mean, the fireplace itself can be used in any application. It's got a metal flue and a ceramic box, so it's not for combustible reasons. So, I mean, what would the requirement be? You know, the exterior sides and not the underneath the porch, or?
It would just be exterior,
Yeah,
so what we would see from the
yeah.
public.
I'd have to figure it, but.
Just a note of clarification, the financial aspects of this are not our
Irrelevant.
responsibility.
Right, but I didn't raise it.
Wait.
And for me, this is one of the toughest calls I think we've had, because while on one hand, I think we do have to defend the standards, I would say that I agree with both Richard and David that it probably looks better to leave it the way it is than to change it. And maybe slightly tilting me that way is the fact that, unlike the other examples that we saw on Graham Road, you will not be able to see this chimney from the road. And if the lots are built in Savile Road, then you will not be able to see it at all.
And we're looking at it in winter.
But is this an incentive then to build and see how it looks and request later, though? I mean,
Yeah, I'm-
that's, I mean,
I wouldn't consider that an incentive whatsoever, because in
Every
a
case on
sense,
its merits.
each case has to be listened to on its own merits.
I get that, but if,
So if we do one this way, doesn't mean we have to do any of the others this way.
but we probably wouldn't be having this discussion, I'm guessing, if this weren't already constructed, right? So the fact that it is already constructed is making us all,
The fact that they don't have a CO for it is what's pushing the story.
David, you want to make a motion? I think you may have some support here.
I would be happy to, I also feel like I ought to say that, along with Ann's comments about not encouraging non-compliance and coming later for forgiveness is not something we want to encourage, and maybe there's a way to build that into the motion. Are there any thoughts on that? Maybe I just stated.
I wouldn't think it's necessary. I understand the point, but if each case is considered separately, then we're not setting precedent per se.
Because there are no two cases exactly the same, ever. Because you're talking two different lots, two different colors, two different everything. So each case is considered on its own merits. It may be perfect for this one, but the one right next door, it wouldn't look worth a hill of beans on.
We do generally, I think, rely on real estate and construction professionals to be aware of our guidelines and to comply with them. I don't think we expect homeowners to be as attuned to that unless it's brought to their attention by real estate professionals. So my own view is that this case was not, this matter could have been presented to us back in May, and we would have addressed it at that time. There would have been minimal cost implications, whatever our decision might have been. And unfortunately, that didn't happen. And now we have the situation that's before us.
Suggestion, David, look at page 9. The staff comment would be easier than trying to do the other sheet.
do we know that that's true, though? If homes are built on that road adjacent, do we know that this will not be visible?
Beg your pardon?
What's your question? I didn't hear.
Will it truly not be visible from the road even if homes are built there? Just asking. I mean, that's,
I'm ready.
I don't know. It depends on what kind of home you put on the empty lot next to it, I guess. Again, it's back to the,
Let's give it a go.
oh,
I move that the Historic Preservation Commission find the proposed major work at, where are we?
335?
335 Linden Road is not consistent with the historic district standards insofar as the box chimney, the fact that it's boxed. Nonetheless, it is deemed congruous with the Pinehurst Historic District based on the testimony given, the material submitted, and the findings of fact for the following reasons. The applicant and staff have shown several other properties with similar box chimneys. The chimney, the boxing of the chimney is congruous with the materials, color, scale of the rest of the house, and it is not visible from Linden.
Second?
Second.
Discussion. All right, prepared for a vote. Richard?
Good motion, yes.
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 No,
No?
no.
Yes.
The motion passes. You want to make the second motion?
Yes, sorry. I move that the Historic Preservation Commission approve a certificate of appropriateness for the proposed major work at 335 Linden Road with the following, I guess I don't want to do that one. I'm not making any conditions. I move that the Historic Preservation Commission approve a certificate of appropriateness for the proposed major work at 335 Linden Road.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No?
No.
Yes.
Thank you. You have your certificate of
Congrats.
appropriateness.
Thank you. Good evening.
If you are the applicant's representatives, would you state your names and spell your last name for the record? I'm sorry, would you speak up? It's hard to hear through that mask. Thank you. Thank you. While you're standing, would you raise your right hands, and do you swear or affirm that the testimony you will give in this proceeding is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Please be seated. Peter, would you like to present the case?
Yes, sir. The purpose of this public hearing is to consider a request for a major certificate of appropriateness within the Pinehurst Historic District for construction of a new single-family home at 170 and 180 Seville Row. The property can be further identified by Moore County Tax Registry by Moore County PIN number 855-200-365-615 and 855-200-363672. The property owner of record is Linden Close LLC, and the applicant is Gary Jones, which is represented by 310 Architecture. This request is before the commission because the applicant is proposing construction of a new single-family home, pool, and tennis court. According to the Historic District guidelines, major COAs are required for new construction and in-ground pools, and the commission must rule on their determining the factor of that. 170 and 180 Seville Row are vacant lots and are not listed as contributing structures. None of the adjacent properties are listed as contributing structures. No COAs have been previously issued for the record. The applicant has submitted a material package which includes complete application, elevations, 3D renderings, a site plan, a landscaping plan, and a consent letter from the property owners. The applicant is proposing a combination of stone and hardy siding for exterior of the home. The proposed home is 2 stories and has been built as a building footprint of 2,700 square feet. The applicant is proposing a rear yard lawn, rear yard pool, and a side yard tennis court. Multiple trees will be removed to accommodate the construction of the new single-family home. These are the properties that were notified in association with today's hearing. In total, there were 7 properties notified, 1 being in undeveloped land outside the historic district, and 2 being on Murfield Place, which are also outside the historic district. This is the notification map for today's evening. In the hash mark there, 180 and 170 Seville Road are the properties that are being discussed this evening, and in the red are the notified properties adjacently. This is the plan furnished by the developer / area of work that was submitted by the applicant locating where the work is to be completed. This is the site plan submitted by the applicant, clearly showing the home situated in the front portion of the lot with a rear pool and lawn and a tennis court and a unique feature of a pond-to-pond conveyance landscaping. This is the floor plan for the first floor of the home. As you can see, the first floor is 1,900 square feet. The total building area of both floors is 3,900, and the garage is 752. That 2,700 number I gave you earlier is based on the first floor and garage. This is the second floor of the living space. And then here are the elevations submitted by the applicant. This is the street-facing elevation, otherwise known as the south elevation. As you can see, they're doing two different colors for the exterior colors for the hardy board, and they're doing stone on the left side of the elevation, and they have a inverted sloped roof. Once again, here is the east elevation, which would be the right, I believe. This is the north elevation, which would be the rear elevation of the home. And here is the west elevation, which would be the left elevation of the home. And you can see on the rear, they are proposing a balcony/deck with black steel vertical posts and stainless steel cable rails. Sorry, my bad. They also provided a 3D rendering of the front elevation showing what it would look like from the street with mature tree growth and landscaping in place. This is the exterior materials and colors provided by the applicant during their applicant submission. And at this time, staff would like to submit the following into the record: staff report, presentation, applicant's material, photos, site plans, and findings of fact.
All right, questions? Those materials will be admitted into the record without objection.
There is an additional material that needs to be entered. The applicant provided me with a presentation that also needs to be accepted into the record as well, and that will be later on.
All right, thank you. Questions for Mr. Hughes?
I have one. On page 8, Peter, under item number 5, your comment says sliding doors have been proposed on the south. I believe it should say sliding
It's
doors
say
are
north.
not.
That's a mistake. I'll modify that. That's sorry. North and south are hard for me sometimes.
That's good, thank you.
Peter, you indicated on page 10 that it was unclear whether any large trees were being removed, but the lot is wooded, and you'd reached out for that. Have you received any
I
further?
have not, but there could be information provided. Mind you that when you build a new structure, trees are going to come down. So it's kind of just an inevitable beast of the situation. Are there any more questions for staff?
All right, hearing none, would the applicants like to be heard at this time?
Thanks, Peter. You all hear me okay?
Microphone.
Okay, all right, how about now? Is this better? Oh, this is much better. Okay, great, thank you. My name is Paul Fox, and thank you guys for letting us have this opportunity to present. We are here representing Dr. Gary Jones. He is our client and the person who wants to build this home. He apologizes he couldn't be here this evening. Because of COVID, he is in Charlotte. He had a seminar that he was instructing a year ago, but because of COVID, he put it off, and it just so happens to fall on tonight that he's doing that seminar, so he really wanted to be here. He's listening to the call. He stepped away from that for a few minutes. He would love to be able to talk, but I don't know that we can really probably make that work. We'll be a try, potentially. But he is definitely a member of the community. He's lived here in the past, and he's very much interested in becoming part of Linden Close. Gary, can you hear us? Yes. Okay, all right. Gary, just wanted can he say something?
You have to swear him in.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's up for the commission to determine whether or not his testimony is valid, given that we cannot see him or certify that it is him speaking, but it's up to the commission to determine that.
Gary, this is Eric Fonsalz, the chairman. Can you hear me? Do you swear or affirm that anything that you say in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Was that yes? Okay.
Okay.
Please go ahead and say what you have to say.
Yes, sir, go ahead.
Hi, folks. Personally, this meeting is extremely important to me, but my professional obligations have prevented me from attending personally. I've been a member of the Pinehurst and Southern Pine communities for the last 23 years. I'm a veteran. I left the Army at Fort Bragg. I bought a private practice in Pinehurst and was on staff at First Health for 9 years. Looking forward to coming back into Pinehurst. I've lived in Southern Pines for the last 4 years. Very excited about the project that Paul, Dave, and their team have put together. I think it will add to the beauty and charm that is the village of Pinehurst. And I appreciate you letting me say a few words. Thanks.
All right, thanks, Gary.
All right, thank you. Gentlemen, what would you like to add in support of the application here?
Thank you very much. Yeah, are we hearing okay? Thank you all very much for letting us be here. We do have a presentation that and we've got hard copies of it here too, but it should show up on your screen. And while they're doing that, again, thank you for letting us do this. Sorry? No. We're very excited to be here. We've worked with Gary for a few months now, and this has been a very exciting project because he's been involved and been one of our team in putting this together. And this is a representation of what where he is at and what he would like to accomplish. And we've all, from the very beginning, thinking that this project should make sense because we're in the historic district. And how can we do this to represent Gary's goals, but at the same time have a well-designed house that meets all the guidelines for the commission, as well as the Pinehurst ordinances and so forth. So what you're seeing is a project that's in design. It's not you're not seeing working drawings, but there's a lot of information there, and it's because of the nature of what we do now. It is very accurate in terms of what it's representing. But again, we're excited the fact that we feel that the project really respects the historic district and blends with the intent of all the architecture that we're seeing within the historic district. And we have some slides that we want to show that, but as we just start, we'll just go through. This is an enhanced version of what you saw earlier, but just to place the project, it is on the edge of the historic district in Lindenklaus. It's a great neighborhood that's evolving. This is one of the first few lots. There's some existing homes. I know we have a neighbor here that is located here already that can talk to this, but our intent is to make this site work with its surroundings, with its immediate surroundings, and then at the same time work within the historic district. As Peter was saying, the site, Dr. Jones has looking at 2 different sites, and as a combined site for himself, where what we're doing is we're placing the building on one site, and we're looking at placing the tennis court on the other site. And what this does is it creates a nice synergy between the two, and so that the tennis court keeps its own privacy, and the house can create its own sense of a residence environment, which is what it should do. But as you look at it, you notice that the house, because it's a 2-story house, it's got a great scale to it. And you see that with the elevations and so forth in terms of its size and its footprint. It takes basically the center third of the lot, which really helps keep as much of the landscaping, the existing landscaping, the trees and so forth, as much as possible. And what that does too is it creates all this wonderful area for him for behind the house, which is where, as Peter said, that's the pool's located, just a relaxing area and so forth. But it is specifically directly behind the house and not to the side. So the house does a good job of that. In addition, we've pulled the garage around to the side of the house, so it's not facing any part of the street. So it has a very comfortable arrival for the house. We've also done, because of the nature of the house, we've created something that in terms of talking about how it works with its site, the site falls away to the back. So it's a natural environment for the homeowner to enjoy the site as it moves back, because he's seeing it as it lays in front of him towards the back. It also creates a nice environment where we're looking at putting a water feature that actually starts in the front and carries through to the back, literally appearing to go through parts of the house. That's just something to give back to, kind of back to the community, back to the neighborhood, in terms of having just a nice natural feature that works, again, naturally on the site. I think I've hit all those points. With the tennis courts, again, just to make sure everyone understands that they will be screened. The intent is to have natural screening around those, because we think that works well. His intent is to have lighting for that, but all the lighting will be directed downward towards the courts, because of the technology on lighting, we can keep that lighting directly working off that court and not spill out to any of the neighbors, as just similar to the house itself. The plans for the house, as Peter said, they're very straightforward. The square footages are very comfortable. It's not oversized. The house matches up on top of itself, so it creates a nice compact scale, great proportions. It's very typical to a house of this size. It doesn't go outside of what you would expect for proportions to be on a house like this. And it's very exciting because we've tried to emphasize things like how you move inside the house in terms of the stairwell, and how that, again, that there's a relationship to the nature and outside the house, and again, working with the site features. So we think the house works very well with its connection to the natural. And the second floor plan, which is right over top of that first floor. The elevations, as you've seen, again, what we're trying to do is looking at all the guidelines and what the intent is behind all that for us. We pick up on the things that are very strong, like the roof lines. The key word that we pick off of that is simple roof lines. So we've done that, and in this case, there are two sheds, shed roofs that all they do is just oppose each other, but in the same plane. Keeping the materials simple, as Peter was mentioning, we've got all the materials work well with all your guidelines and what you're looking for in terms of the types of materials. The colors are off the color palettes within those within your guidelines. We've made the scale of the entry in terms of the size of the house makes sense in what you would expect in terms of arrival to the house. All the windows as individual windows are in a vertical proportion. We know that's very important, and it actually is important to us. What's interesting about when we go through these types of things with guidelines like this is that because we know a lot goes into developing guidelines, we can see that they make sense. And this is another good example of that. The simple roof forms, vertical windows, these are all things that we strive for when we do projects, because they do make sense in terms of how you organize. And the massing feels comfortable, how things are organized. That's what drove us in putting this together. The details, in terms of the details, we've got some more information after this, but we feel very much that they are congruous with elements within the historic district, and we'll show you some of that. But more importantly, when you take this as a project on itself, all the details, the intent is that they all work together. You can't look at one and say, well, I don't understand why you would have done that. It doesn't make sense with building the house that you're trying to create. This house, we worked very hard with Gary to create something where it makes sense of itself. And as you go through the elevations on the other sides, you can see that it is one thought. in terms of how it comes together and the composition of materials, and trying to use, and especially using the materials that are in your palette that you've asked us to look at and to use, and all those requirements that are important to you. And the back side, which is where most of the living side is, and this is the side facing away from the street into the wooded backyard with the, and this is what protects the living space of the backyard, which includes the pool and lawn area. So that's its main function. And for Gary, it's to keep making sure that we bring natural light into the house, into those common areas within the house. And the other elevation, very similar to the other side elevation, but just its own little character, but again, it all works within the same overall idea of how this house comes together. This is the side where that garage is on, but it's facing, again, away from any street elevation. So no, driving on the street, you don't see that garage door at all. This is what you've seen previously. This is the materials that and how they work on the house. It's generally all the siding is is horizontal. The stone is very compatible with what you'd expect to find with a house, not only like this, but almost any house that you would find in the historic district. It does have a metal roof and decking materials that again you would find throughout. And what we think is organized in a way that is very, very visually appealing to the neighborhood and to those who arrive at the house. And this is just, I think you've seen that. That's a view that we had up earlier, but we wanted to show you more views of how this house feels because we think it all comes together really well in terms of the design of itself and the consistency and the commonality of how materials and details are used throughout the house. Just go through these. There's just a couple. And what that, and if you're a bird flying by, you'd see that. And so what we wanted to do to help us understand and for you to understand in terms of what helped us sort of organize our thoughts in terms of where the details come from this house and how does it pull itself together as one thought. So we went through and found things throughout the historic district. And I know as other people have come before you do that, it's our job to do that. But we think they're powerful, impactful in terms of how they affected our design. So we've placed some of these up here, and probably most are familiar with the 25 Medlin Road project. That was an addition and renovation to the house done, I believe, 4 years ago or so. And it does within the historic district, we certainly saw that as something that is relative, and it makes sense in terms of what they were trying to achieve. We have different purposes on what we're doing, but in terms of thinking that, okay, there is some precedent for it in the historic district, then we're not far off from what we're doing. And what we've tried to do with these slides is just show you some of the elements that are congruous in terms of what we're doing. In this case, talking about the roof slope, the shed roof, detailing around the eaves, those types of things that lend to congruity between historic, the buildings within the historic district and our project. The next project is 225 Linden Road. There's lots of glass on the front. And we're focusing in this slide is the fact that they successfully have a shed roof that works very well as part of that house. And again, showing how that can be very successful in a good design. And we're just pulling, ours is similar to that in this sense and congruous, we feel. This slide represents a house at 190 McCaskill, I'm sorry. And the thought here is that what's interesting is the relationship of materials, the darker color for the siding, and how that pulls together in terms of wrapping itself around another material. Put on my glasses so I see the addresses here. This is back to 25 Midland Road in terms of how windows are organized, the vertical windows are organized in groups of potentially, and it's helpful, just as a lot of people know, that getting fresh air into a house in a convenient way a lot of times becomes an awning window. And in this case, the 25 Medlin Road does that well, and what we're trying to do is have a similar approach in terms of how we organize windows, still keeping the overall windows vertical, but we're using a darker frame and organizing them. And just another example getting ahead of myself here, at 25, I'm way ahead of myself. 190 Seville. And again, this is next door in the neighborhood already. They're doing, this is, I believe, approved recently, similar design approach to how the windows are organized. And again, some other windows in the same respect. And this, in this case, of having doors that open up, French doors that come out to the front. This is at 25 Mendel Road again, the idea of how you organize trim and how you delineate parts of the house. This is a great way to add detail, which adds a level of design that organizes a house. And so this is the same approach we've taken on the house in terms of organizing the pieces of like bedroom or living spaces versus non-living spaces. And this slide is from 25 Medlin Road again. I'm sorry, no, this is from 30 Barrett Drive. And the idea of taking structure that's holding things up, holding a roof up in this case, and saying, how do you identify that and how do you accentuate that and make that important to the overall design, and in terms of both structure and color. And last but not least, the idea of columns and in terms of their proportion. There are all different ways to do this that are very successful. We've taken an approach to have it more minimal rather than exaggerating it, because it aligns with the overall design, which I know is important in terms of how we approach the overall project. So our intent through all this, as we've said, is to make sure that we look carefully at all the guidelines that are within your manual and within your guidelines, and make sure that knowing the difference between cannot do it, should do it, preferred, and all the wording that's in there, and try to, very hard, make sure that this met all the intent that was there. And and Gary and our team feels strongly that we have got a house that's well designed, it takes care of its site well, and it meets those guidelines. And I don't know if do you have anything you want to add, Paul?
And I would like to add too, and David mentioned it very well, but the house, again, it was our goal, as, part of this was we went through a true design process with Dr. Jones and how he lives. And part of it is this house is settled and nestled into trees, into a wooded area currently. We're going to have to take trees out in the very center of the lot, in the very center of the lot, but it was his goal to leave as many of the pine trees which are there around the house. That's part of the character and the charm of the neighborhood and part of the setting. In Dr. Jones' current house, he has gone to great extents. He has wonderful landscaping. It's very well thought out. It's very well manicured. It is very important to him to have that. And he intends to do the same thing on this property. We've talked about it several times. The water feature, the gardens, the landscaping, it's part of what this house is as well.
All right. Does that conclude your presentation? Are you ready to take questions from the commissioners? Yes. Questions?
Put this,
I would thank you for the presentation and for trying to match the guidelines with the proposal. Very well done.
Question for you. Am I looking at the driveway on the right side here?
no, I can't point at that. Yes, it's the
Is that the driveway off of Savile Row?
Perfect. Here, I'll use the cursor here. Can you see the cursor? Can I see the cursor?
Yeah.
There it is to the left.
There it is. I know. I'll put it on a piece of paper. I need something solid.
I didn't think about that.
Perfect. Thank you. Oh, this is backwards. If I go this way.
There you go.
There you go.
Okay. Now, where's the cursor?
Over on the left side of the screen, it turned into a,
There it is. I'm sorry. Now, are we?
stop it, it turns into PDF crosshairs. So if you just keep on circling.
Right there. Can you see the cursor right there? Yes, you're right, if that's what you meant. That is the entrance to the drive,
Yes.
and it circles around. Oh, boy. It's not moving. I'm sorry, Peter. It's not moving. But as you can see, the gray area circles around to that. The two darker gray areas are parking pads, which align with the house. And you can see the entrance to the main house is off the right-hand pad.
I guess I'm confused by the different colorations.
Looking up there, I'll do that, yeah.
Where is the garage?
Garage is right here.
So you have to come in and go
So
all the way
you come in
around?
like this, drive past, you can park as a visitor, or if you're temporary parking because you're living there, or you can drive around and be hidden. The cars are, the garage door's here. So the drive for the street does this. So you can see all views from the street. The garage is not viewed from any point on the street.
Thank you. What was the issue about the coloration of the driveway? I don't know what
Change the
OC 190 is.
Oh, I'm sorry, say that again?
OC 190 is what your application says. That's the coloration of the drive, which is not consistent with the guidelines.
OC 190, I think, isn't that the black color? I think that was a color, I thought that was a color on the building, no?
I don't know what it is.
Okay. Yeah, I think OC 190 is that this project isn't totally flushed out as far as all the construction drawings, but we were trying to mimic natural tones like concrete and other stone, concrete and gravel both. That was potentially what the drive was going to be. I think that we were trying to reference a color.
You haven't made up your mind yet.
If I could say that the intent is to just change the texture of the driveway right there. And it may go from smooth to slightly textured, or may go to stone to smooth, like a gravel. That has not been fleshed out. But the intent is to change the texture.
Terry, anything else, or? You went to great lengths to talk about how you attempted to incorporate this design into the guidelines, or the historic district guidelines. And I'm not an architect. I don't see it. I don't see that you picked any of the 7 approved styles. It's an interesting house, a little homage to Falling Waters possibly, but what was the thought process there?
Well, the thought process is that I guess we didn't read into that language that these were approved styles, that these were styles that exist in the historic district right now. So our goal was to take a look at those styles and find and think about in terms of what Dr. Jones-Gary, what his intent is in terms of the type of house he's trying to create. How can we pull from that as an entity in itself in terms of a whole, as opposed to mimicking one style? We didn't look at it as that your request was to copy any particular style, but rather we took it as an opportunity to develop the project that he was looking at, but at the same time pull in these pieces that have some congruity with other homes in the historic district.
When I first got the package, it's interesting, the only comparable building I could think of was the one on Medlin Road. And I think, Peter, that was approved, or the changes to it were approved by the HPC?
They were,
But
back in 2017.
I think the other ones that you cite on Barrett Road and Linden and so forth, I think were, although they have elements which are similar, I think they were all built prior to the time there were HPC guidelines.
My thought is, and I think it may add on to what you're saying, it almost appears that we've taken a piece of this one, a piece of that one, a piece of this one, a piece of this style, and kind of put them together to get what we end up with. And I'm not saying, I mean, it's a beautiful house. I absolutely agree with that, but I don't see where it fits, if you will, into congruently with any of the other styles that we have there. I mean, it's not close to a Federal, it's not close to a Queen Anne, it's not close to anything. It's just almost like a hodgepodge pick.
Yeah, I'm reminded of the application we got on Midland Road, the last buildable lot on this, but this has taken it even farther than that. I mean, that house had certain elements of Queen Anne and what have you.
This goes well beyond that, I think.
Yeah. I mean,
Before you guys continue, I just want to clarify that these aren't approved or must styles. They're just the prevalent architectural styles. So they're giving examples of the prevalent architectural styles. Just wanted to clear that matter up for the record.
I agree with that, Peter, but I think it's also a relevant consideration when we're asking ourselves whether something is congruous with the historic district. And one way of looking at that is to say, what do the houses in the historic district look like? And it doesn't seem to me that it answers our question to say, well, here's a house that has a column in it, and we're going to build a house that has a column in it. And we're going to take this, here's a house that has a sloping roof, so we're going to have a sloping roof. I think if you were to say to someone who has no particular interest in this particular design, but just say, what do you think the neighborhood called the Pinehurst Historic District looks like, people would tend to look at the pictures that are on pages 35 through 37 of our guidelines, which I know you're familiar with. They wouldn't necessarily think in terms of, take a piece of this kind of design and take a piece of that kind of design and put them all together. I mean, our job here is to decide whether this proposed design is congruous with this Pinehurst Historic District. And I understand your argument. I'm not sure whether the majority of the commission is going to be persuaded by it or not.
Could I add some? I was going to say that I don't know the history as well as you all do in terms of when homes were brought into the commission or when the commission started. And maybe I should know exactly what those are, but I don't know what those dates are. But I'm thinking when you look at, as we did, we drove down every street because we wanted to get familiar with everything in the district and to get a sense of it. And actually, our feeling was that it felt to us more in general that most of the homes were doing similar approach. And I'll leave it at, that's the word similar, I won't go any further than that, but similar approach in the sense that they have just pieces of them that are congruous to the styles that you described. Because it's very difficult in a lot of times for people to mimic those styles exactly the way they should be done, well. And I think what you find is you find a lot of homes that are, they have pieces. They take the same, literally take the same approach. And they may not look like ours when we were done, exactly. But in terms of that approach that you describe, I would, with a lack of a better term, argue the fact that it appeared to us when we were driving around, most of the homes have taken that approach. But I say that because I'm not sure when that changeover was. So you may say, well, no, everything from this date on, when we brought this commission together, this council together, they have done this. So I can't speak to that. But it appears when you look at the district in general, you're looking at homes that have just taken a piece of some other style, whether it's cottage style because it has a similar porch and one gable roof, but then the rest of it is just I'm going to say it, it's more of a contemporary version of it because that's what a home builder has ended up doing because they've gotten enough of it to be congruous. And I think our charge was to work for our client in terms of the type of house they wanted to do, that he wanted to achieve, and say, how can we take the same approach and do the best we can to make this congruous, and thinking, well, that is the approach that it appears that is being taken throughout the district, is that there's pieces of it. And yes, we have taken different things, and some things have been more important to this client than others. But I would say that we're taking a similar approach as it appears to us that most have taken. So it's a matter of whether, in your minds, have we taken that the correct way? But that was our intent, which we thought was similar to others.
I'll echo some of the compliments. I think you all have done a wonderful job. I mean, this is the renderings, the home. It's exquisite. It's the detail you've shown, the renderings, a lot more detail than we're used to seeing from a lot of people. So I think, irrespective of what happens tonight, I think your client should be pleased with the way you've presented it and argued your case. I think the stretch to try and find congruity is a little bit of a stretch. And I'll share for me is because what we've just said, Eric, a few other people have said it as well. If you had that Medlin property, if there were 15 other properties in the village, you wouldn't have to pick and choose trim from other houses to try and prove congruity. And it just feels like that's what's being done. I know that's what Tom had said as well. It just, I live in the village. I have white siding. You could have come and take my farmhouse bungalow and showed a swab of white siding. And they were completely two different styles of houses. And it appears that's what you've done. And I know why you've done it, because unfortunately there aren't enough houses in the village like Medlin that look like this, in my opinion. So I commend you. It's almost a scholarly, lawyerly argument to try and get us to that point. But for me, the feel of that special character is just too far a stretch, just absolutely too far a stretch. I think you can go a couple of 100 yards down the road, you'd be outside of the historic district. This would be a beautiful home by anyone's standards. But for me, it's just, there's no way I can link this up with the historic character and charm that we all enjoy and feel within the village. And it's subjective. That's just for me. That's why we have 7 people here. And we can talk through this and negotiate these points. But coming back to this, to prove congruity, there's just not enough here. The case before you, 335 Linden, there's 14, 15, when we talk about a box chimney, they made the case with several properties where they could prove their case. We don't have that here.
Could I ask
That would be
a
my issue.
question on that, just as, I guess for the record, whatever. How many homes does it take to be congruent?
Qualifying number. I mean,
Nothing.
it doesn't take X number of homes to get there. This, I'm going to take a little broader approach than what Richard has. This is a modern home. I mean, I don't know what else I would call this design other than modern. Okay? The things that we have, and I'll agree with Peter, these are not required styles to be by any means, but these provide styles that are typical of Pinehurst in a repetitive, there's a bunch of each of these out there. There's exceptions to all of them, but most of them look like they were built back in the 50s, 60s, 70s during the time of our deal. This, I couldn't picture this home being built at that point in time. It is just too modern of a structure, appealing or apparent structure based on your wonderful drawings and presentation, that it looks just way too modern to put into a historical district. That's my opinion.
I'll make one other comment, which is probably better suited for our internal deliberation, but I'd like to make it so that you can respond to it if you wish. For me, if we were to approve this, I don't know how we could not approve anything else. I think it would set a standard of congruity that,
It's not congruent. It might be.
and I'd be happy to have you respond to that. As Richard said, go 500 yards farther down the road and it may be perfect. And I'm even thinking of places like the number 7 golf course and Country Club in North Carolina. They're outside the historic district. I don't see a lot of things like this, but it's a beautiful home. Really beautiful.
Can I respond to that?
Yes, sure, Gary, go ahead. You have the- Turn that on.
Microphone next to it so we can record it, please.
Bob,
Oh, sorry.
I'm wondering, and a question back to the commission, how did 25 Medlin get approved if there was no other house like it in the historic district? They had no congruity, yet there it sits, 0.5 miles from the center of the village, and I'm a mile away on the periphery on a cul-de-sac, essentially, but this is sitting in the middle there. How did it get approved?
Before my time on the commission, I don't know the answer to that.
As staff,
But you are the commission, and it was approved, so the commission is the commission. I need to know, if you're going to deny my project, how that project got approved.
Back to each case is taken on its own merits, location, place, and anything else. It's not taken for any given comparison to that. So, I mean, it's a different lot, it's a different look, it's a different everything, so it's unfair to take any one and compare it directly to the other and say this one was approved because of that one, or vice versa.
But any one house is one house, and that one house is being evaluated by the commission. 25 Midland Road was one house at one time being evaluated.
Yes.
This is one house at one time being evaluated as well, with precedent set from 25 Midland on the type of roof and structure and the modern design.
What we have to do, we've had a lot of discussion of this among the commission members over the time that I've been on the commission. What we have to do is to look at the historic district as a whole. There's been consideration given to breaking the historic district down into sub-districts. That's been determined by the village council not to be practical. I happen to think that was a wise decision, but they didn't even consult me. They made that decision before I was involved. That means that we have to evaluate this proposed house that's almost at the end of the historic district, the same way we would evaluate it if it was in the middle of the historic district. And if we set a precedent in a particular case, it means that precedent can then be cited to us. We don't necessarily have to agree with it, but we can be cited to us and can be argued to be persuasive that we ought to approve something someplace else. I think we have to evaluate this proposal with all of that in mind, understanding, Dr. Jones, very much that this is the house that you want. It's a beautiful design. I'm sure it would be a very livable house, but we have other issues that we have to consider in deciding whether to grant a certificate of appropriateness or not. Are there any further questions for the applicants?
Can we open up to the public?
Pardon?
Can we open up to the public in case others have desire to speak?
Public comment.
In case others have.
Yeah. Are you here to speak on this application? Okay. Okay. If you gentlemen could leave the table and these people can come up.
We'll let you come back in a minute. Thank you.
Are you both going to speak or? Okay. All right. Will you each state your name and spell your last name for the record?
Miles Larson, Larsen.
Deborah Serino Brenner,
And will you spell that?
DebraSerino, Brenner, Brenner. And I am the current property owner.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Please raise, have I sworn you? I don't think I have. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you will give in this proceeding is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you. You may both sit down and.
Mr. Larson, I'm sorry, what's your connection to this application?
Thank you. First of all, thank you for allowing me to be here to speak, and thank you for listening to some of our concerns with regards to this. So my background, I just purchased Lot 16 in Linden Close, which is going to be 220 Seville Row, directly across where Gary is going to build potentially his home. So I'm an impacted party. I'm also an interested party. A little background, not that it makes me an expert, but for 6 years, I was on both the Planning and Zoning Board and the Board of Adjustments. I had to resign in 2018 due to a deployment that took me out of the country for a year and a half. But again, like I said, that does not make me an expert, but there are a couple of things that I would like to talk to you about on the merits, but I would also like to appeal to your sensibilities from a personal perspective. I think I would like to talk first about, I've been a resident of Pinehurst since 2012 when I built my first house on 5 Glen Meadow Court, and at that time, Gary Jones just happened to be my neighbor, next house over. Didn't realize that Gary was building another house, or potentially asking to build a house here in the village of Pinehurst, until it was brought to my attention today by Deborah. What I can tell you about Gary personally, not only is he an exceptional human being, but he is a veteran. He's also a renowned oral maxillofacial surgeon. So he brings a lot to this community each and every day. He left Pinehurst to move to Southern Pines. He's now looking to come back into Pinehurst. Part of what makes us an exceptional community, the very fabric of who we are the people that are here. And Gary is part of that fabric. Also, this home is part of the fabric of what Pinehurst is. And the reason I would say that to you is this, one very simple reason. The historical guidelines are, let's just say, for all intents and purposes, pretty black and white. But there's also an element of subjectivity, and I think that, Richard, you had mentioned that. Because the word prevalent does not mean that this is what you have to build in Pinehurst. It does not set that statute. It says these are prevalent homes that were built from 1895 until the 1940s and 1950s. Well, we're a much different community today than we were over 100 years ago. Quite frankly, we're a much different community than we were 20 years ago. In 2000, there were 4,000 full-time residents. Most people that came here had a second home. Today, 18,000 people live here. And what makes us so special is the fact that we have character, charm, and we all work so hard to preserve it. Now, I'm not going to argue the merits because I think that, quite frankly, the folks, the architects, have already done that. But what I will tell you is this. The 25 Medlin, which is right up the street, not in just the historic district, it is in the downtown village. That thing was a box. In 2017, somebody asked to renovate it and create essentially the same exact architecture. Now, again, Richard, I think you used the word exquisite. Now, I would use the word exquisite as well for the home that these gentlemen have proposed here today. When I saw this, I didn't see this until today. I just got the phone call. But when I saw it, I was like, wow, that validates why I bought a lot in Linden Close. And let me give you a little additional background. So when I moved here in 2012, he was a young father with one child. In the last 10 years, we've grown as a family. We've grown out of our house on Glen Meadow Court, and we need a new place to live. Now, what's interesting about this conversation is that 10 years ago, when I was looking for houses in Pinehurst to move my family from Fayetteville out to here, I actually looked at Linden Close. And 10 years ago, I told Deb that I couldn't commit to building a house in a development where there were no other homes. I have a young family. That's not what I was looking for. Well, real estate market gets hot. I'm able to sell my house at a very nice profit. And in those 10 years, there are 4 houses, and they're all different. And this is why I bought over Linden Close. On the left-hand side, you've got a cedar shake house. On the right-hand side, you have a gorgeous 4,000-foot stucco house going up. Up in the back, you've got a Craftsman. And the house directly to the left of where Gary has proposed to build is another modern home. Well, I bought 16, and I plan, well, I'm going through the design phase, and I have a vested interest here because I'll be back in front of you probably in the next 60 days to propose my design. And our design as a family is we're looking to build a French cottage. And why is that important? Well, I bought in Linden Close because I don't want cookie cutter. I want unique. I want charm. And when I saw this house that Gary's proposed, I think to myself, and we can interchange words and how they're perceived. Words have meaning, congruous, harmonious, compatible. I look at that house as it sits on that piece of property, and I think congruous, I think compatible. Matter of fact, what I did was I went and looked at Frank Lloyd Wright, harmonious. I would challenge you, each and every one of you, that if Frank Lloyd Wright were here today proposing to build a house in Pinehurst, would we off the cuff just say, no, it doesn't fit the model? No, we wouldn't. We've come so far not to be closed-minded about these things that this right here fits in with that development. And let me also tell you this, that as a homeowner, I think that this adds value, not just to Linden Close, but I think that this adds value to Pinehurst, the village of, writ large. More importantly, getting somebody like Gary Jones to come and commit to come back to Pinehurst, I think is a significant statement that we shouldn't just take lightly. Again, I challenge your sensibilities with an open mind to think about some of the things that we've proposed and think about this from a different perspective. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Larson. Questions from the commissioners? Mr. Larson, any? Ma'am, did you want to add?
Yes, I have something to add, yes, thank you. And I'd like to start with a question. Mr. Hughes, do you remember when this property became part of the historic district?
I wasn't here, ma'am. I've only been working for the village since 2019.
So unfortunately, so I bought this property in 1988. It was the first tract of land I bought when I came to town.
Excuse me, ma'am, I'm just trying to clarify, what property are you referring to?
I own the piece of property known as Linden Close.
Owns this, right?
You own the development.
I'm the developer.
Okay, I was just trying to understand that. It was unclear in my mind.
So this 20 acres was the second piece of property I bought when I came to town, but it was the first larger tract of property that we bought. I bought it in 1988, maybe 89. It was not in the historic district when I bought it. It was always my intention to develop this property. It was my original intention to live there and then develop it. At some point, and I wish I could remember when, but today as I sit here, I cannot tell you the year. But after I made the investment in the property, first of all, when I first bought this property, it wasn't even in the village of Pinehurst, okay? At some point, it was annexed in. That was okay. Cost me more money, but that was okay. Then it became part of the village then it became part of the historic district. Another burden to me, but that was okay too. But at that point, whenever it was that it became part of the historic district, I said, what does that mean? What are you asking me to take on? And I specifically asked the question, would I be able to build a Frank Lloyd Wright house here? And it's funny that Miles brought that up, but that was my question, and I have to go back to get all these assurances, because I'm sure they're somewhere. But it was told, yes, I could build a Frank Lloyd Wright here, that it always had to look like the village. And over time, I have worked with many other architects, and my dream and my concept was take bits and pieces, make this a very special place to live for 19 people, and to make it look like the village of Pinehurst. It doesn't have to look like the 1929 Greek Revival home that I live in now, that was one of the first homes here. It was built in 1929. It was wonderful then. I wouldn't build that house now. So it is my concept. This is going to be my landing place. I'm going to live on lot number 1 someday sooner than later, I hope. But my dream for this property has always been bring everything in from the village, make it very special, make it custom homes for everybody. The last 15 years have been very hard on me. In 2007, I invested $1.8 million into the infrastructure. It's been a heavy load. I'm a single mother with 3 children. My 3 children are in graduate school. So this has not been easy for me. I've never asked for any variances. I've never come to the village and said, it would be a much easier load on me if I had 45 or 60 lots instead of 19. I have played by the rules that I signed up for. I've accepted the rules as they have changed. And today I do not feel like my potential customer is asking for a change. I have gone by your rules for 30 years. I continue wish to do nothing but go by your rules. But I feel, but I hope but your rules have created economy has created a financial hardship for me. There is a light at the end of this tunnel. Buyers are coming to the table. People are willing to spend money again. But to tell them what they can or cannot build, that as long as it goes by the rules, it may not go by some person's aesthetic. It may not be what you prefer to have. It may not be what I would have built 20 years ago. But I hope that you will consider the fact that Linden Close is to me a very special place. I want it to be a very special place. I hope it will be a very special place for Dr. Jones. I hope it will be a very special place for Miles Larson and his family. So thank you for your time. Thank you for listening. And I hope you can open up your minds and your hearts to what I'm trying to accomplish here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions for this witness from the commissioners? Thank you both very much for your testimony. We appreciate it. Do the applicants want to add anything to what you've already said? Otherwise, we'll proceed to deliberations.
I would like to add something if I could. And Mr. Schroeder, if you and thank you so much for everyone's comments. We understood we may have a little bit of difference of opinion tonight, so we appreciate that. You mentioned that this house was a modern house. In fact, it is a modern house. Every house built today is a modern house. So we have to think about how we're talking about design, aesthetics, and style, and having opinions about that. I'd like to bring up another case that happened in a historic district in Raleigh, North Carolina. There was a house of this similar type that was designed a few years ago. It made national news. It was designed by an architect, Louis Cherry, if you know him at all. It was built in a neighborhood with other houses that I would say have character. They're, whether they're, they have very, I guess, what we think is a normal house that everyone else is going to build that looks like the neighbor's house. It was, actually, it was incongruous with the neighborhood in a lot of the forms, actually the setback from the street, the scale, the proportions of the house. It met everything it was supposed to. The neighbors were very upset about this house and fought him in court. He actually had approval from the city and from the neighborhood, and the neighbors fought him after the house was under construction. This made national headlines. It was definitely opposed. In the end, when we are designing buildings and homes, think about, we are not respecting architecture and design by repeating the same design motifs over and over again. There are guidelines that we are meeting, and there are interpretations of what we think is important. For example, some of the houses that we've seen here today that have been examples that we're trying to plead a case for a screened-in porch or other elements. Some of those are very tasteful, very well put together, thoughtful ideas. There are lots of homes that are built today that are pieces and parts of every style, and it is mixed. It is not necessarily good design, but it's approved because we think it looks like what we're supposed to approve because it's similar to those other things. Good architecture, good design is original. If we let our preconceived notions about what we think is important out there, we'll just continue to build the same thing over and over again. I realize you all have a very tough, it's a tough decision for you all tonight, and we do ask you to sympathize with us.
Thank you for your comments. Are there any further questions from the commissioners, or are we ready to deliberate? I think we're ready to deliberate.
Eric, before you start, I just want to remind everybody that you also have the option to continue, to allow them the opportunity to revise based on tonight's comments, if that would be what they would want. Just put that on the table that they could continue to a specific time, date, and place to present a revised submission that might be more in keeping with the district. But there you go.
Well, let's let's proceed to a discussion and see where we go. I don't usually start off deliberations with my own opinion, but I think I will this time. I agree with those who said that this is a very interesting and attractive design. I also agree with those who said it doesn't belong in the historic district of Pinehurst. I'm sorry, but to me, it is not congruous with the district as a whole. And I fear that it's like taking your finger out of the dike. The floodwaters rush in. I don't recall the 25 Medlin case. I think that may have come up before I was on the commission.
And before these new guidelines? And before these new guidelines, or no?
Probably under similar guidelines. And the congruity is in the statute. The congruity requirement is in the statute. That's not our.
I have a comment.
Pardon?
I have a comment if you're.
Yes, yes.
I think we use the wrong word in modern. Every new home is modern. This is contemporary, and that is the issue that I think we're all faced with. That's my opinion relative to the difference between modern and contemporary. Thank you.
And I think certainly in my time on the commission, in situations where something that's not exactly down the middle of the fairway, we've always tried to look for a way to accommodate differences, suggest if you could tweak this or tweak that. For me, this would require so much tweaking as to become a completely different house. And so if I were the one trying to build this, I would know, this is the house that I want. I don't want to tweak this, and I don't want to tweak that. But for me, it is not congruous with the historic district, much as it could be a very attractive place to live.
Now, out of curiosity, was anyone on this commission at the time Medlin got approved?
Tell me the year and I'll tell you whether I was on it. I probably no longer see it.
I can speak for four of us.
2017, right?
I think 17 and
17.
Wasn't me.
I can count the majority of people here weren't there. So, and I understand that may be frustrating to you because you look at it and you say, well, there's precedent, but we don't work that way. For us, it's congruity.
And we generally, as we've discussed it, we've said that when we're asking whether something is congruous with the historic district, we're not saying, is there one single example of this thing somewhere?
Right.
We're looking at the historic district as a whole. And that's why I think it was appropriate for whoever it is who brought up pages 35 to 37 of our guidelines. I mean, it's not that we say every house has to fit into one of those architectural styles. It's that those are typical styles which, with mix and match and so forth and so on, represent what we expect to see when we say this is the Pinehurst Historic District. We don't expect to see falling waters. Is anyone prepared to make a motion?
Whoever makes the motion needs to clearly indicate why they're approving or why they may be denying the case. So you'll have to call out specific examples from tonight's testimony and case.
Well, our form motion says in parentheses, state reasons why it's incongruous, i.e. Vinyl siding is not consistent with the guidelines. I think what we're saying is that the overall, I'm interpreting what I've heard from the other members of the commission to be that the overall design of this house is incongruous with the historic district as a whole. It's not a specific element of the design, it's the overall design.
Well, there are a few elements that I think Peter picked up, and we could cite a few of them, but I'm not sure that by themselves, I mean, the sliding glass doors on the north elevation by itself is not reason why any of us would say, well, or there we could propose an alternative. So I think it is an overall,
If, John, if you just allow me to, Peter kindly shared something from the staff report here, which is, I'll read. This is on page 40. New residential primary structures must be congruous in size, scale, proportion, style, materials, and architectural character with the range of existing structures within the Pinehurst Historic District, and it's not here, but I'll add, as a whole.
Make that into a motion.
Happy to make a motion.
To clarify, that's
David.
actually in the guidelines, not my staff report, but it is in the
Guidelines.
findings of fact.
His guidelines from the staff report.
It's in your staff report, but it's from the guidelines.
Yeah. There you go. That's the right way of saying that.
David, are you prepared to make a motion?
Sadly, I love the house. You guys did a great job. You worked really hard to make it be congruous. My personal opinion is that it is not, and for that reason, I'm going to make this motion. For you and your client, I think you've done an unbelievably, fantastically dynamic job in meeting his desires. But for me, it doesn't fit in the Historic District. So I move that the Historic Preservation Commission find the proposed major work at, where are we?
170 and 180 Savile Road.
Be incongruous with the Pinehurst Historic District based on the testimony given, the material submitted, and the findings of fact for the following reasons. I find that the proposed design is not congruous in style or architectural character with the range of existing structures within the Pinehurst Historic District.
Is there a second?
second,
Discussion. Hearing none, we'll proceed to a vote. Poll the commissioners. Richard?
Aye.
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 just to be clear, by voting aye, we are voting to not approve. Aye.
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 And then the
Accept, David.
second motion to deny the COA.
I move that the Historic Preservation Commission deny a certificate of appropriateness for the proposed major work at,
170, 180 Settle Row.
thank you, Peter, for the reasons previously given.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Any discussion? Vote. Richard?
Aye.
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 I regret to inform you your certificate of appropriateness has been denied.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Great presentation.
You want your, give him his materials back.
Do you want your back? Is that it? Okay. Right on.
Situation on the house.
Take 5 before the next one.
Sure. Sure, we'll take 5. We're in recess.
Martini.
This meeting of the Historic Preservation Commission has resumed. We have concluded the public hearing. May I have a motion to close the public hearing and return to the regular commission?
Wait, we got one more.
One more case.
Oh, we have
Yeah,
another
we have
case?
one.
We do.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm sorry.
3-5.
Oh, sorry about that. All right.
The thickest piece of paper we have,
Yeah,
packet we have.
prior to the
This is the
update.
one these two changes were in, is that
Right.
correct, Peter?
We'll address those during the public hearing.
Just want to make sure I have the right paperwork in front of me. Thank you.
Eric, can you go ahead and swear them in since they're
Yes.
standing quietly for
Would you raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm the testimony you will give in this proceeding is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Yes. Will you each state your name for the record and spell your last name?
Cheryl Melhorn, that's spelled Melhorn.
Thank you. You may both be seated.
Thank you, sir. The purpose of this public hearing is to consider a request for a major certificate of appropriateness within the Pinehurst Historic District for exterior modifications at 15 Chinquapin Road. Modifications include the addition of dormer windows, the addition of architectural details, addition of siding material, addition of a patio, addition of a fence, addition of stairs, and the addition of new roofing material. The property can be further identified by Moore County Tax Registry by Moore County PIN number 855-2129-68400. The property owner of record is 15 Chinquapin LLC, and the applicants are Andy Bledgy and Cheryl Melhorn. This request is before the commission because the applicant is proposing changes that qualify as major COA work items. New construction or addition, replacement of architectural details that changes the design or materials, limiting or adding windows and doors, and replacement of roofing with a different material or style from that being replaced. 15 Chinquapin was constructed in 1921 and is listed as a contributing structure. 15 Chinquapin was the second home of the Bank of Pinehurst. Most of the adjacent properties are listed as contributing structures, and there are 3 previously issued COAs, all being minor COAs. For the record, the applicant has submitted a material package which includes elevations, photo of the existing structure, historical photos, a detailed project description, a site plan, and building materials. On the note on the building materials, they are shown on screen, but we also do have the hard copies that they submitted, which we can pass around if you'd so like. The applicant is proposing to match the material of the addition like for like to all existing material aside from the new roofing material. The new roofing material imitates terracotta, and it's actually metal roofing. It's a very interesting product I recommend you passing around. The applicant is proposing a side yard patio and a brick wall fencing. The third floor is proposed to be expanded and increased in cubic area of the third floor. So there's an existing third floor. It's a floored space. All they're doing is increasing the cubic area with the dormers. They will not be exceeding the elevation or current peak height of the roof. So it's sort of an addition, but it's really an expansion of what's currently there. All proposed brick improvements are to match the existing brick of downtown Pinehurst as best they can. In total, 6 properties were notified. All these properties are commercial properties located in downtown Pinehurst, and the only one that is not a contributing structure is 19 Chinquapin, which is, I believe, the Harvard building. Here's the notification map for 15 Chinquapin in the hatched building. Our hatched area is 15 Chinquapin. In the red outlined areas are the adjacent properties that were notified today. This is the site plan that was submitted. I apologize for quality. When we go into discussion, we can bring up the PDF that has a higher resolution. Here to the right is where they're expanding the patio area. They're going to be removing multiple landscaped areas in order to accommodate outdoor seating. There'll be a fountain addition here. The wall will run down the eastern part of the property line, and out back they will have a service area with a high fence screening all new service and mechanical equipment. On the front, they'll be doing some minor adjustments to the front facade, and then they're obviously adding the dormers that will be shown on the later elevations. This is the existing elevation submitted by the applicant. This is showing the front elevation, rear elevation, existing right side elevation, and existing left side elevation. Here's the modified front elevation. So here you see the addition of that flat profile roof line. That's from the result of adding dormer windows to the to the structure. In addition to that, they're updating the existing metal railings here on the front to incorporate existing and historically accurate detail. On the right, as you can see, there's that fence that we were talking about for the patio area, and there is a little gate entrance that's also there. On the left elevation, we show a clearer version of that dormer addition. In total, I believe there's 15 windows being added, and all of them seem to match what's currently there or are similar in style. This is the right side elevation. Obviously, we're doing dormers on both sides, but the biggest change with this is both on the rear and the right, which is the addition of a staircase, getting access to the third floor. The applicant's proposing to do residential living up there. They're able to do that in this commercial zoning as it's a mixed-use area. On the sight line, they are showing that from the street view, you won't be able to see from the sidewalk area that you can see the addition of the dormers from the street. These are the historical photos that was submitted by the applicant. We're right about here in proximity to where the building is currently, showing dormers throughout the historic village. And here is the historical photo of First Pinehurst Bank with that metal railing in the front, and then on the roof, you can't really see it here, but according to the applicant, it's terracotta roofing was the original roofing of the structure, which is kind of what they're going back with, that metal replica material. And here's a better one showing that contours of that potential terracotta roofing, and then also that metal railing again. Metal railing again, I apologize for repeating myself, just they're showing you what was currently there and how they're returning it to what it was. This is the tile, and at this point, I'm going to just go ahead and pass it around. I think it's kind of important for you guys to touch and feel it. We'll start with you guys. It is a metal product based on conversations with the applicant, and it's going to be simulating that terracotta style of roofing. This is what it will look like based on once it's installed, and this is how it's going to appear on the roof line itself. So this is what they're going for with that look. Now the applicant submitted a bunch of existing photos. In the interest of time, I'm just going to briefly go over them. There's about 40 of them, so if we need to talk about a specific photo or they need to address something, they can at that time.
This is what you're looking at.
So this is multiple front elevation photos. This is an alley photo of the left side of the structure. This is showing the windows of the existing structure, more window photos. That railing photo, window photo, existing brick pavers that they're trying to match. This is that landscaped area that's going to be coming out. They're going to be putting their patio in. Just a different view from that same area showing the side of the building in that landscaped area. This is the rear of the structure where they have that brick addition. This is the entrance into the back portion of the structure. This is the rear elevation showing here on the right we have dormer windows on the Harvard building and what is currently there with the little peaked roof and where they're going to be adding dormer windows on their elevations as well. This is the view of the right side of the structure from the rear showing that alley that we previously saw. This is the current service area that they're showing. This is the deterioration of windows I believe that they're showing here, but they could correct me at their time. Additional showing gutters and molding around the existing exterior of the structure. This is not a zoomed out photo, but showing the same exact thing. And here is the proposed material list that was submitted. In addition to all this, they submitted a revised, updated, detailed project description to you guys that was provided to you earlier today and has been provided to you as well. At this time, staff would like to submit the following to the record: staff report, presentation, application, applicant's material, photos, site plans, and findings of fact.
Without objection, the materials referred to by Mr. Hughes are admitted into the record. Do the commissioners have any questions for Mr. Hughes?
I do.
Yes, sir.
Is that the color of the tile?
That would be a better question to ask to the applicant, but I believe it is the
Because
color.
in the application here, we have terracotta, and another place we have dark green.
So I was using
So
terracotta
I'm
as
looking
like the
at three
style
different
of roofing in the
samples.
staff report, not the color. So the style of roofing is kind of that terracotta look, but the coloring is the dark color that's been presented in their application.
That's,
Do you want to answer that question now?
They're sworn in.
I'll
so they-
hold my question until you're up.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'll go through it.
Okay.
Peter, there seems to be a lot going on here, and there's not been any statement as to why or what is the end goal. Is that germane to the conversation?
It might provide a broader broader story for you guys to understand how all those changes apply to the project, but once again, that's definitely a question for the applicant to answer.
And I think you just mentioned that it's anticipated the third floor could be used for residential purposes, even though the building is owned commercial?
That is correct.
Is that why in the section where you talk about the brick wall, you point out that they can be taller when you're screening a private residence from commercial or institutional building or parking lot, even though the residential piece is presumably only the third floor?
That's sort of why I was talking more, that's, the reason why I brought that up in the staff report was because they're screening mechanical equipment, and the height of the wall is to do that. It has no, relation to the third floor.
Gotcha.
6-foot wall is not going to accomplish something.
Thank you.
4 feet high.
But the sidewall, Peter, that is mentioned, that's, what's the total height? In part is brick, I think, in part is
It's 6-foot brick
iron.
wall.
That's the screening wall. Ann's talking about the patio wall. Just based on scaling, it looks maybe it's going to be 4 feet on the sides there. So 36 inches, so 3 feet tall.
18 of brick and 18 of metal?
Railing. I'll go through that.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, no, I saw
Any other
that, but it
questions
was-
for Peter? Yes, David?
Just for the record, Peter, on sheet 2 of 2, the left and right are swapped.
Left and right are swapped.
Question also about the existing front elevation suggests there's no railing over the main entrance, or at least doesn't appear to be, or it looks solid. The photo obviously shows a metal railing.
There is a metal railing there.
Question is, you're not changing that? The railing that really does exist is going to stay there? Okay.
Peter, oh, I'm sorry.
And Peter, for clarification, the stair serving the third floor, for lack of better descriptor, the fire stair, isn't really a fire stair, right? It does not need to be there in order to comply with code?
That is a building code question. What I can tell you is that it can be accomplished multiple ways to provide fire code compliance. And Mr. Bledgy can address that.
All I got.
That's what I had, yeah.
Inside of your packet, there's a thing that says the background of the building. I'm going to go ahead and read this because it kind of is why we're doing the things we're doing. First of all, the building currently located at 15 Chinkopin, North Carolina, was built in 1921, so this is its centennial year. It officially opened November 9th, 1921 as the Bank of Pinehurst, eventually becoming the Carolina Bank, and then the Branch Banking and Trust through subsequent mergers and sales and acquisitions. This November will mark its 100th year anniversary. The building consists of 3 floors and a basement. The basement was originally used as a secondary bank vault, a break room, a rentable retail space, initially leased to a barber shop, and later to a retail real estate office. The current tenant is an artisan chocolate company called Form 5, and continues a continued use that aligns with the early uses as a retail space. The main floor, the first floor, consists of a banking lobby, 4 loan offices, and main vault. The Moser Safe Company, outfitted number 10. The main vault is significant as it was the first vault of its kind in the United States and was marked as heavily as the vault that could never be robbed. This was a major advertisement at the time until the FDIC insurance didn't come into being, since the FDIC insurance did not come into being until 1933. The vault was so significant that the U.S. Banking Conference was held in Pinehurst in 1922, sponsored by the Vault Builder. According to the November 1st, 1921 edition of the Pinehurst Outlet, the second floor consists of rentable rooms used as offices or sleeping rooms to ensure the income until they are needed for the bank.
Sir, excuse me, haven't we already admitted this as part of the package? Does it need to be read?
I just want to
I'm
make
just,
sure.
6:30,
It's a little different. Has everybody already read this?
We have it in our packet.
in our packet now.
Okay. Let me just skip then forward to planned alterations. There's a question as to why we're doing the planned alterations. Inside of the bank, we've tried to come back to the original, what it was in 1921, as close as we can. So the alterations Not going in through the in-type alterations, but the planned alterations, the addition of a brick fence screen area mechanical in the rear of the building, a maximum of 6 feet, which is in accordance, all these are in accordance with the guidelines. Addition of a fire escape exit to current code specifications to provide additional fire egress with screening gate and fencing on the rear elevation. Originally, there was a third floor staircase that had been removed. It's been replaced by one meeting code. So this is an addition on the back side of the building as an egress. We tried to make it more attractive than was required by code. We could put a ladder sequence and a few other things that are not as attractive. Addition of a patio brick pavers in the front of the right.
Is it required by code, though, on
Yes,
the
it's
stairs?
required by code, depending on, we met with the fire marshal twice out there. He would like it in place.
You would
So
like, so it's mandatory, is it?
They said that we haven't got the building certificate, but yes, they want an access up there. And the front access, they said, would potentially, if we did not want to put it in, there'd potentially be, they could potentially approve it, but they would not like a secondary access.
So it's not required?
We don't know yet. I
Well,
guess
how-
it's the best.
Which came first?
They recommended it. When we have not submitted for the, we had to submit to you all first.
Could you live without it if you were told you didn't need it?
We could live without it, yes. It would actually save us quite a bit of money. But from my personal standpoint, it would not be wise.
Why?
For safety reasons.
Safety.
There were people up there.
Just if there were people up there, I would prefer them having 2 exits out of it. The old staircase that is in the building is actually not to code. We're grandfathered in. So I'd prefer having a access point that is current to current code. But is it required? I'll find out when the building fire inspector requires it. But we put it in because we assumed it was going to be required.
Just curious with Peter, how does this work with, well, I'm asking Peter how it
So,
works with respect to other officials. and the-
Under a hypothetical scenario, let's say that it's not required. You guys could condition the approval saying that the staircases as proposed are approved, but if later they're deemed not required, then you guys could say, don't build them. So you could condition the case if you're worried about that.
Could we not do the converse? Approve it without the stair, with the condition the stair is not there, and if upon review of the drawings, the fire marshal says, no, you gotta have it, well, they'd have to come back.
That is also an option?
Thank you.
We put it in it because we feel it's going to be required. Let's see, let's see.
And again, we have all this information that you're reading, I think. If it's something new, I want to hear it, but you don't need to read what we already have.
The only thing that's going to be new is we were just talking to the fire marshal 3 days ago. I think that's in Peter's thing.
It was in my updated staff report. Let me pull up the PowerPoint real quick. So on the rear of the structure, our building code official is going to require, my apologies, I'm trying to get to the right slide, a hooded ventilation system for their kitchen. I'm lost on the right. Do I not have the rear elevation? I apologize. Let me pull that up.
And Peter, is that because of what the chocolate company is doing, or is that as a result of these renovations?
I believe it's as a result of the potential kitchen and restaurant that's going in.
Okay.
Which floor is that on?
That's on the main.
The ground floor.
So they're gonna take a vent all the way to the roof?
That's what they required, yes.
Gonna have a big old thing on the roof?
Don't know if it's a big old thing, but it's a pipe
an
going out for a
architectural term, you know,
ventilation
big old
system,
thing?
yes. Yeah.
There we go. So if you
And it
can-
extends up 36 inches. And because of maintenance reasons, they requiring us to put a 42-inch fence. So we propose putting the fence around the whole area to make it appearance look more uniform with the front, rather than just the one little section on the end, which we don't think will look appropriate.
That's correct. And this development happened this Tuesday, and I'd worked with the applicant to try to get an updated elevation. But if you can see where my cursor is, so right where I'm circling, the hooded vent's going to go between these two vents. And it has to go through the roof versus on the outside. And because of that, when they put that up there, the apparatus has to get serviced and maintained. And to meet code, they have to have a 42-inch railing to be safe. So that's the reason why for the railing. They could just do the section that they have to, But that, you know, I agree with the applicant that it could be more pleasing if they did the whole section just to make it consistent.
The railing is like wrought iron, it's not solid.
Going to match, everything we're trying to match is, there's one original piece of railing that's on the front above the doors. We're matching everything back to that. There's some other railing around, but it doesn't match the original, so we're reconditioning it all to match the original.
So, to belabor this point, but that's okay, I'm clear on. That part I'm clear on. The exhaust from the kitchen that sits up on the roof of the lower building on the back side of the building, right?
Correct.
And it sits up 3 feet, 4 feet?
That one has to be 42 inches.
42, so it'll be higher than the railing. And the railing is quite transparent.
No, the vent, it's actually a little bit higher than the vent, yes. The vent's only 36 inches.
Okay, but it's
Yeah.
about as high as the railing, which is very transparent.
Correct. Well, I mean, say that one more time.
Well, the railing is pickets, like,
Well, no, it's actually, can you go back to the original front?
Yeah, hang on a second. PowerPoint, I apologize.
Or any of the current pictures too?
This picture, sir?
Yeah, if you can pull it, it's an exact match of that.
okay. So it's quite transparent. You can see right through the railing
Correct.
to the vent beyond.
Yes.
Okay, got it. Thank
Yeah,
you.
it doesn't screen the vent, no.
Got it.
Yeah. But also you can't see the vent. You'd have to be in the middle of the road to see the vent, just because of the height, the angle. Because the vent does set back about 36 inches too. So you can't see it from the sidewalk. You'd have to be in the middle of the road to see it.
Certainly if you're driving by, if you're on the other side of the street.
You could see the vent.
We're hoping they'll look at the pretty railing.
Since you have the rest of it, that's the only change, so if you have any questions, I can take those.
Alternative to, are you?
But that's a
Okay.
perfectly good.
I'm just curious, is there another way then
We
to?
proposed not to do that. We proposed it going out the side of the building. Fire marshal did not like that. He wanted to go through the roof.
But now that you're where you are, is this the only screening that's possible?
We can screen it more. It would not, it would actually, I don't have a precedence for screening it that way in downtown Pinehurst. So we try to keep as much as possible to the requirements of the historic committee.
How about relocating its exit point to be right up against or closer to the main white part of the building? So that that sight line gets better.
We actually proposed to the fire marshal to decrease it so you couldn't see it at all from the top. He requires that height. So that's a requirement that I don't have control
I
of.
don't mean lowering it, I just mean move it further back from the parapet.
Yeah, we've suggested that too. We try to move it as far back as we can. And we actually are bending the pipe to move it back further.
As far as they would allow us to move it.
Done everything you can do.
So we are with you. We would like it as far away from the edge as possible. So we propose that. This is our compromise, is he's moving it, I think, an extra 12 inches. He's allowing us to move 12 inches back, so it keeps it from the edge.
Here, in terms, I don't know if I'm out of.
Go ahead.
Or in terms of process, that, to me, two big things, unknowns to me, are huge in my mind about congruity. One is the stair, obviously we're struggling with that, or I'm struggling with that. And the other is this new vent and the potential for further screening, as you've mentioned, but both of which might change my opinion about maybe this is a good one to continue.
So because it's a code requirement, because they have to install the railing to meet code, just doing that section where they have to, they could get approval through staff.
Well, I'm not at all concerned about the railing. I'm
Okay.
concerned about the visibility of the vent hood.
We are totally willing to you can put that as a contingency. We will try to screen as much as possible.
I guess I'd just like to have that come back before us before we commit to an approval. Peter, can you review for the applicant what the process is for a continuance? I don't know.
A continuance would be us stating on the record a specific time, date, and place. So easiest way to do that to say April 22nd at 4 p.m. at the next regularly scheduled HPC commission hearing at 395 Magnolia Road.
But is there a way, I mean, they may want to start earlier than in a month, right?
Well, the vent is actually not on this application. That's just a requirement of our current permit.
But is there a
In
way
that
we can?
case, they'd have to come back anyway.
Not in this case because, like I said, it's a code requirement. Anytime there's a code requirement, they have to do it to meet code. For instance, if they were proposing a window that needed to be ingress, egress, and change the dimensions of that window, that would be handled at the staff level because it's a code requirement. They have to do it for safety reasons. So safety trumps historic district guidelines.
But I guess I would beg to differ in the case, at least in this case, where rooftop equipment can be disastrous and affect the architectural character in a big way. Just because it's required by code shouldn't prevent us from considering that when we're reviewing a change.
Would you be willing to give them a condition that it's 75% screened?
I would like to see what color it is, what material is it, how tall is it, where is it, how does it relate to the railing?
Is it possible to condition on the stairs and then this other piece coming back to us?
Not without having, you can't give them an approval and have them not pay a separate application fee and be renoticed and everything like that. As a continuance, which would be,
Just so you know, on the vent, it's not on this application. It's being required of us.
Unfortunately, I know about it now.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
So-
it's already part of the other application is already required of us. It's actually going to be installed in less than 2 weeks. It's part of our application as far as our permit for the kitchen.
Can that be? Aren't we charged with reviewing structures?
it's an
Well,
interior
I think as Peter
alteration.
just described, if it's required by another agency, that may supersede our authority.
But I'm not suggesting that I would say, let's not have the hood. I'm suggesting we should have a say about how it looks. That's all.
And how it's screened, right?
I mean, if they already knew what it was supposed to look like, then it would have been on this application. But there's some degree of uncertainty.
It seems to me we're not living up to our charge if we don't have an opportunity to
It's a little bit like people have come before us and said, well, I haven't decided what kind of front door I want yet. Well, good, let us know when you want to know what the front door is.
No, you could, I'm not saying whether I'm in favor of continuance or not, it's just, I think we're talking about a roof vent here for some sort of kitchen equipment, but I mean, there's some other things we still got to work through on this application.
True.
So,
Well, the stairs.
stairs, but it's for me, just a question for you all. So the chimney that you see now, in the real-time rear view, you see the chimney.
Yes.
Does that go away, or does that get hidden by and incorporated into the extension of the roof?
It's actually neither one. It actually stays exactly where it is. The dormer doesn't go over that far. So there's a chimney there. It stays as it is, other than we're going to restore it.
Maybe I missed it in the elevation. On the rear elevation,
If you look at, go to the rear photograph, the dormer.
Right there.
Yeah, the chimney is not disappearing. That's not the chimney, actually. The chimney's actually not even shown in there. But if you go to
Okay.
the actual photograph of the rear, the dormer doesn't go over that far. It doesn't run into the chimney.
that's what so that was what confused me. I didn't see it on the elevation. I didn't know if it was,
It's marked on there with lines on the detail one, but not
Okay.
that one. But yeah, that chimney stays exactly where it is.
okay. Is there, do we read if the tree's being removed on this application? Or a tree?
They've agreed to restore it. If, they're going to try not to remove it, but the tree may
In
die.
the event that it goes, okay.
They're saying that may die during the process.
Right.
Okay.
So if it does, we'll restore it.
And you'd replace it with a potted tree, if you will.
But right now, because of the impervious space, the plan is not to even touch it, so it's going to exist.
A bunch of my fellow commission members are down at ground level. Can you take me to 5,000 feet? You're going to have a restaurant on the ground floor and residences upstairs? This is the general idea?
Right now, there's a chocolate maker on the basement. The second floor is a French bakery, a commercial bakery that does coffee. They also will do bourbons and drinks at night. They're also going to turn it into a wholesale bakery that'll supply other people, but they're out of Raleigh, and it's a wholesale baker. They plan on using the little, there used to be the ATM thing and going to the patio for outdoor dining. They're also adding, when Tuff was here, they added, he had sodas and drinks and stuff like that. They're planning on adding back into some sodas, ice cream and drinks.
There was a rumor that one of the local restaurateurs wanted to turn that into a real restaurant. You're not talking about a restaurant, but there'd be a place that is serving some food.
Yeah, we'll be serving food, but it's not, it's more of a bakery than a food place.
And then private residences, condos, or whatever on the third floor.
The second floor is actually commercial space. It used to be residences historically, but it's right now a commercial space. We have a military contractor that leases that from us. And then the next floor up is where it will either be commercial space or residential space. And it's not residential space to rent, like a VRBO or an Airbnb.
Along that same line, the area that you're talking about, a brick patio, is currently a garden, right?
It's got a concrete path in it. It's partially patio, partially garden. And so we're planning on taking it.
And if you put a brick patio, you've already pointed out that the large caliper tree is moving some stones. I sat on the bench and I saw about 3 pavers that had been moved. It's not a big deal. But if you put a brick patio down there, it'll be over the roots of that tree and it's sure to die.
Yeah, there's actually, the brick patio is back from the tree. If you look at the plans, that's not around the tree. The patio, it's curved back. If you look at,
Well, I thought this whole area with the caliper tree and the garden is part of the charm, frankly, in my opinion, of the downtown area.
correct. And,
And that walkway there is, goes between the 2 major streets for shoppers and residents.
That's staying too.
And if you put a brick wall there that's 6 feet high, I think we lose a lot
There's no
of
6 feet
charm.
high wall there. It's that wall is only 1.5 feet high.
Pardon?
That wall is only 1.5 feet. The 6 feet high wall that you're talking about is a screening wall in the very back of the
okay.
building, only
But-
for utilities.
Anyway, I forget my comment about the wall, and I just think it's the wrong thing to do with that space.
Well, it's, if you look at the picture up there, the caliper tree that you're seeing in the front, that's staying exactly where it is. The brick is behind that little brick wall that's there. And there's, that's actually where the original wall, there used to be a fence along that patio area, originally in 1921. We're planning on restoring that with the little brick wall and the fence line.
Okay.
That fence line is only about this high. It's not a,
But the garden totally goes away.
no, actually, the garden is going to be intermixed with the brick area, so that you'll have a garden still inside of the brick paver area.
Okay.
So
it's a compromise between what you want to do with the space for guests
correct.
and maintaining some of the charm that
Correct.
that is particular of interest to me.
Yeah, actually, it'll have, this is my personal opinion, of course, but it'll have actually much more charm than is there today.
Okay.
It'll be a usable area. We're planting, the plants that are being planted in there are honeysuckles, so when you walk down that path at night, you'll smell honeysuckles and flowers, and it's designed around a dining experience at night or a sitting experience to have desserts at night in Pinehurst. So it's kind of revitalizing the building. Inside of the building, you'll be able to get chocolates, desserts, and you'll be able to eat them outside. Also, the lighting in the front is now flickering lights rather than,
Well, from the description that there, it was difficult to tell the extent of the brick patio.
yeah, it's the 2 lines you see up there, it says brick right after it, that's the brick area.
And
then-
you actually have a laser pointer in front of you.
What's that?
You have a laser pointer. It's the
Okay.
top button on there.
That would be helpful.
Top button.
Is that working?
Hold it down, I think. There you go.
Oh, there, that's it. There's these 2 things are little tiny brick walls, and they have a little tiny fence on. This is the brick area here. This fountain is not, it's designed as a fountain, but it's basically a small drinking area for dogs and stuff, so you can water your dogs. And then this goes into the building right here through the old ATM office. And that's all been redone.
From the building outward, how far does the brick patio go?
Brick goes to right there.
What?
Brick goes to right where that pointer is. This stays natural out here.
Brick kind of comes halfway out from the building to the,
Yeah, it comes, the brick, this is right now an open area for stairs going downstairs and has utilities in it. The brick will come from that wall over the top of this, and then it'll go out to where the brick patio is, or the brick walkway is. So the brick walkway completely stays intact.
I'm confused, and if that's all brick, where does the garden stay? I'm confused.
Garden is actually intertwined with the brick area. It's on little planters on the sides here. So this gets planters, 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 planters. And this is basically scaling.
So these are going to be plants in pots, is that what
Yeah,
you're
they're
saying?
above ground.
So whatever exists there is going to be ripped up?
Yes,
And you're going to
everything that exists that you currently
reorganize
see.
the garden effect by putting plants in pots?
Correct. Well, the garden area, it will, once again, my opinion, but it looks nicer than what's there right now. It's got more flowers, it's got more grass, more stuff.
Have a drawing of all this?
No, it's not part of the historical part. That's part of the landscaping part, so I didn't put drawings of that. But I do have drawings, but not with me part of this application.
The large tree at the front, you're not intending to do anything with, is that correct?
That is correct.
So the paving, the brick wall, the little garden setbacks, all of that is not coming before us?
No, that's all before you. It's
There's
shown
no-
on the elevations,
there's
but
no
the
drawing of it.
landscaping plan is not shown.
So I guess I find it very hard to review based on as good a job as you've done, it's hard for me to review what it might look like without a drawing.
Landscaping plan to be part of this?
It's optional to be submitted. Typically, landscaping plans are reviewed by staff.
That's what I was
Because
told
this
when
has
we
got
did the
some
application.
other parts that got to go into it. He's got to work on his impervious numbers to make sure that they're consistent. So if there was a change to his landscaping plan, because he had to add more, or take away, add some here, that would come
I
into
guess
play
I-
at the staff level.
I think Terry has a really good point. That space is part of the public experience of people walking through Pinehurst, the most historic part of Pinehurst, where it's part of the public space. And it's going to somehow get built without us looking at it. That's not good.
If it were required for us to submit, we would have submitted a
No, I'm
landscaping plan
not
for
blaming
you.
you at all.
All I can say with that is it will look, that's why we kind of did the introduction on the sheet. What we've done is, our plan is to make it better than what is there.
Right. I absolutely commend your intent. Now let's look at it.
So, but if you want to require an approval of the landscaping plans as a contingency, I'm totally fine with that.
Well, Andy, I don't think, not to speak for David, I don't think that's what he's saying. I think he's saying if there was a sort of colored conceptual plan showing what you're doing, that would have been a lot easier for us to visualize. Not saying it hurts you, but it would have helped. Not that we want to get, that's not our purview, nor do we want to talk about caliper of trees, but it would have assisted in visualizing your vision for this property.
Well, we do have what the patio looks like up there. If you kind of go back to some of the, we were actually asked to take some of this off to make it,
Oh, you
it
want
was
me to
too
go
busy.
to the, you want me to go to the busy one? There you go. So that's the first one you submitted where I asked you to take the internal stuff out.
Yeah, but anyway, there you have the brick pavers, you've got the fountain, but we have, if you want to see actually what the fountain looks like, we can submit that. We can submit the flowers and the landscaping parts.
But I think, not to pick nits here, on one of the other photographs we looked at, the parallelogram that says brick pavers at the top was there, and the same parallelogram at the bottom said grass area.
That's correct. So they updated their plan upon my request because there was concern over impervious coverage. So the one that reflects grass is more accurate. This one just had the additional detail he was asking for the conversation, but the updated one on page 8 here that I'm showing on screen now does call for a grass area here. And that's when they were working out their impervious. So in this zoning district, they're limited to 90% impervious. And so they're close, and that was just to make sure that they were within that and, PDO compliant before they came before you.
If they don't need the grass area to meet the impervious coverage requirement, that whole area will be bricked, and there'll be potted plants, and I'm sure
That
it's
would
going
be
to
a
look
question
nice.
for them, because I can't speak to what their project entails.
Yes, that is correct. We will go up to 90%. And so we will brick it if we don't need the impervious area.
If you're over 90%, you'll cut back the brick there and so that it's not
Then
impervious.
we would go from potted plants to actually in the ground to keep the impervious area down.
So the potted plants don't count towards their impervious. You know, it has to be flower beds, you know, water getting into the water table.
So we would go from potted plants to in-ground plants.
So how do we go about? I don't know. We're still in the question.
I'm fine allowing some leeway there, but I come back to which I didn't understand originally, to David's point. Commercial kitchen HVAC stuff is not ever the prettiest stuff you ever have.
I think we've got a simple fix. Page 54, middle of page D. It's utility and service areas. Number 1 says all roof and wall-mounted mechanical, electrical, skylights, solar panels, as well as vent pipes must be screened from public view. So I
But
think.
whatever it's there, it will be screened.
I think we, not only is that the guidelines, but I think we could get people comfortable with it.
Currently, the exteriors are all unscreened, including the entire trash and all that's unscreened. We're proposing to screen it.
Andy, they're talking about the roof one.
Oh, the roofing?
Okay. And that's,
On the roof where the new vent is going.
It seems to be the trigger.
Yeah, you are welcome to put in there screening, and I will talk with the fire marshal. So,
the screening would be something that has to be like a white picket fence or something that's in our fence standards, just so you're aware. So that would be the 100% that they're talking about when it says complete
And
screening.
that shouldn't impact the ability to service that piece of equipment. There will be sufficient spacing. It's just instead of seeing something that you see through now.
I am totally fine with you all saying that, because I don't have
There's
any
a lot-
problem whatsoever.
Which, David, isn't that your point? If
Yeah.
you have a see-through fence, then you need to know what's on the other side. If you don't have a see-through fence, then we kind of don't care in some sense.
And I am
On the other
totally-
hand, the screen, especially if it's continuous, which I agree with, like the fence is, now it becomes a major architectural component of the mass of the building. So not being able to see that, to make a judgment about whether it's congruous or not, isn't possible for me.
I think we have an amenable applicant, so.
I'm totally fine with you all saying whatever kind of screening you would like, I will put there.
There's a lot of
But I
products, new
can't,
products out there.
I'm not in a position
it-
to design your roof screen
I guess
for
what
you.
we're trying to figure out, do we condition or not? And I think we'd like to see it before we vote on it, so
Well-
are you opposed to coming
I
with
have
a
to
new
put in-
application again with these two? I guess that's what it would be, right?
I am okay with this. We'll put in we're required to put in the hood for operational reasons, but I'm not opposed to coming back and showing you approval, saying that it has to be screened in some way, and I have to bring it back towards you to determine what the screening should be. Because there's lots of ways to screen it. We could screen it with plants, we could screen it with fencing, we could screen it.
And the stairs are an issue for me too, at least.
The stairs are not required for safety reasons. We're fine removing them.
But so I guess what we're trying to do is help you move forward if we can tonight.
Correct.
With as much as we can, but if that means coming in with a new application and a new fee, is that a problem?
No.
No?
But at the same time, I would like you to say, approve what you can. and
Right,
then-
okay,
And then go ahead with the contingencies, because some of the things I can't do
Right.
anything about.
right.
I mean, if the fire marshal requires that, that's what they require, and I can't go forward.
So
Appreciate that.
So Peter, a month ago, we got to a similar situation where the drawings we knew going in were not complete. And yet we approved them, knowing that when they complete them, that's a change, brings them back to us. Can we take that approach here?
We can if the applicant's agreeable to submitting a new application, which based on the conversation I'm hearing is that he's comfortable with whatever approval you guys can give tonight and then coming back for approval on the other items. So
So we
that's
could-
between you and the rest of the commission.
So if I understand it, then if we approve what we've got tonight, and I'm just hypothetical, and then they want something changed, you will apply the same minor, major work standards that you do to it
Correct.
regularly. So if it's a minor work issue, you're going to approve it at the staff level. If it's major work, it's going to.
But one of the problems is the transparent railing is part of this proposal, and if they
Well,
go
but
ahead.
there's nothing on the roof. It's not
Correct.
shown on the drawing.
So exactly what Tom just
So as soon as they
said.
put something on the roof, it's a change. That's-
No, well,
that's
I
the-
thought this was now part of the proposal, isn't it?
It is, actually.
It's already part of the proposal.
It was added by.
Yeah.
Really.
Transparent, isn't
No,
it?
but the exhaust from the kitchen is not on the drawings. So I guess,
I just want to add that that doesn't, it's a code thing. So when they screen it, the screening process can be done through the, minor work process. If they were to do the screen around the whole building, which is not required by code, that would have to come before you. But the screening of the utilities is a minor work item. So what they were trying to do was make it look consistent versus having this one section of the roof being, a wall, so to speak.
I'm not in favor of that. I guess there's room there to get a screen between between the railing and the exhaust hood.
My understanding, we can go ahead and screen it without your permission. We're saying we'd like your permission if you think it looks better.
I'm all in favor of the continuous railing, just not providing any screening. So let's have both. Let's have the continuous railing and behind that. I mean, I'm not in a position to offer architectural solutions. I just want to see it before I say, looks good.
And I'm just putting this in perspective. If they came before me saying, hey, Peter, we're doing this, and they're good to go, they have the building just the way they want, and they're doing a ventilation system that requires screening, that request would never come before you because screening is handled at the minor work level. This was just added because they were going to add more screening or more railing that wasn't required by code. So that was just part of this request because they wanted to be transparent. I wanted to be transparent with you guys to show you everything.
Railing's an entirely different thing, and I have no objection to that at all. That's so
Want
you don't
to,
fall
I'm
off the
fine-
roof.
I'm fine putting a black background on it so you can't see it, period. In other words, we can put the railing up, we can black it out behind it so you can't see it.
Andy, that wouldn't be in keeping with our
Okay.
requirements.
Sorry.
But you
I won't
could
do
screen
that.
it with a,
Mechanism here to handle this.
That, I think bigger than all of that for me is the stair. I mean, to me, the two big things, now that I know more about it, are kitchen exhaust hood, but by far the stair. You know, we talk about the building, the back, that being the back of the building. If you're on the other street, it's the front of the building.
Correct.
So it's kind of important.
So is there a way we can approve everything but those two items for tonight then? Is that?
That would be great.
I'm fine with you approving the staircase only if it's required by code, as a contingency, and we'll take it off if it's not required by the fire marshal. And the screening part, that I have to bring that back I have to bring the screening back to you to get approval for the screening.
No, we're not saying that.
I guess there are a lot of ways to, if you have to have, and I believe you will have to have a second exit up from the third floor, especially if you're putting residents up there. And if you do, I'm sure there are other ways to get a stair in that's not the one you're proposing.
Yeah.
It looks more dramatic on the pictures than it actually is, but just to tell you.
That's kind of a make or break deal, is a stair.
And put a staircase there that looks similar to one on the casino building, which is just a straight,
Just straight down.
straight
yeah.
down. We don't think it looks
I'd be
as
in favor of
attractive.
a small addition on the side of the building that makes it look like a part of the building, and inside that is a stair. It doesn't have to be an exterior stair.
Vertical ladder? Is there,
No, an ordinary fire exit stair, but
Oh.
inside the volume of the structure, so you don't see it.
The only problem with that is, if you see where that stair comes in, that is actually that's 5 feet down from the top. It's cutting into the parapet at the top, still. The level is not where the roof started. The level is actually 4 feet to 4 or 5 feet down on that side. So we still cut into the parapet.
I would say, and again, I'm not in a position to offer advice, but it seems to me the face of the dormer above could come out further and become the top of the stairwell mass. But, I mean,
We were actually fine with that. We proposed that. We thought you all would not like that because we have to cut more of the parapet.
that's why it's so important to me, is that some of the solutions that you're anticipating we won't like, maybe we will like. I certainly would like that better than that.
I'm doing that. That's-
Maybe we should approve without the staircase at all, because they may turn out not to be required. If it is required, they'll have to come back when they know exactly what staircase you want to build.
We're fine with that.
So we're not approving something that we don't really know what it is.
Can we condition that, just so that we amend the application that, you know, the stairs are no longer proposed, but if they are required by code,
Sure.
the applicant has to come back for a detailed review?
That's fine.
I think that's fair. You want to make that motion, John? Well, oh, no, I think there may be public comment.
I would be prepared, but there may be further comment, yes.
Well,
There is one thing.
do the commissioners have any further questions of these, of the applicants?
I will add one other thing. We could make the stairs almost disappear by making them powder-coated white. They would just blend in right to the building rather than black. That's an option.
Drawing.
I see that there are some members of the public sitting here. Are you intending to testify in this proceeding? No? They both indicate they are not. Do the members of the commission have any further questions of the applicants? No, hearing none. We may now go into deliberations or preparing a motion.
The stairs is clearly a contingency. We want the stairs to be a contingency.
That would be my suggestion.
We're approving without stairs, and if stairs need to be added for any reason, maybe because the applicant just wants to do it, even though not required, they have to come back.
Right.
And on the screening for the event, we're not really addressing that at all. To the extent it will be screened,
Yeah.
if it's
They
required.
have to screen it. The guidelines say it must be screened. There are specific standards such as our typical screening material, either a brick wall or a fence. And those fences have to screen 75% opaque from all directions of visibility. So
That's staff level.
that's staff level, yeah.
But it would be more of a screen than we're seeing proposed?
75%.
75% is the requirement by our PDO to screen mechanical equipment.
I'm sorry, Peter.
75% is our requirement to screen mechanical equipment. So that's basically going up to it's only 30 inches. So if they built a 40-inch fence, you're never going to see it from the street view. All you're going to see is a white picket fence or whatever they decide.
But
The
seeing through
railing
it,
is not the screen. It's there to keep you from falling off the roof.
And we can confirm with the building official if a fence would satisfy that requirement.
Combine the two into one.
Yes, sir.
But they don't have to be. They can be separate. The railing to keep you from falling off the roof. and a
Yeah,
screen
and then
around the hood.
the screening is required by the guidelines, the railing's required by the building code.
Are either of those conditions of the motion I'm going to attempt to make?
I think that would be great, yeah.
And we're then using wording two, I believe.
That would be correct.
All right. I move that the Historic Preservation Commission find the proposed major work at 15 Chinkopin Road is not consistent with the Historic District standards, nevertheless is deemed congruous with the Pinehurst Historic District based on the testimony given, the materials submitted, and the findings of fact. This approval is conditioned on the following two things. Number one, it does not include the construction of any stairs in the event that the applicants either desire or are required to add stairs, they will come back before the commission. And number two, that the exact nature of any screening or railing necessary to, in conjunction with the HVAC being added at the rear elevation, come back before the commission when it is finalized.
Like I said, the screening of mechanical equipment is a minor work item typically. And it's a hood system as well.
If necessary.
Okay, if necessary works.
Second.
Discussion. Hearing none. Shall we vote? Richard?
Aye.
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 All right. Passes unanimously.
Number
And-
two.
Wait, we
need
have.
Number two.
The motion to approve.
I move that the Historic Preservation Commission approve a certificate of appropriateness for the proposed major works at 15 Chinkopin Road, subject to the conditions stated in the original motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Passes unanimously.
Bookkeeping items, approval of minor works or whatever?
Close the public, we haven't closed the public hearing yet, sorry.
And thank you. Thanks for working with us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That concludes the public hearing. May I have a motion to close the public hearing and return to the regular commission meeting?
So moved.
Is there a second? Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. No, the ayes have it. The motion passes. We are now in a regular meeting. This is a public meeting, and you are all, if there were anybody here, welcome to stay and observe, but only members of the commission and its staff may speak. We have minor work and staff approvals that we have all been given. Everybody's had a chance to look at them. There's no action we need to take. Is there any other business?
There's a very suspicious one at 105 Palmetto Road. The applicant was really hard to work with. I'm just messing with you. It was just Ann.
Sorry.
She was doing a like-for-like new roof. It was fine. I just want to make fun of her
Can't wait till
because
I get it.
I enjoy when you guys come in and I get to regulate you, and you get to go through the wonderful process. Real quick, I know it's been late, just 5 minutes. Can you guys all open your calendars? Staff's been really busy with other things, but we finally got enough time to sit down and look at my red line markups, which I'm going to send out to you here shortly. That way you guys see what I've proposed. You guys can come and see what needs to be modified. Most of my red lines are getting in, character with 160D updates, changing the word guideline to standards. That's like 80% of the update. But that if we could do something in April as a work session to get those through, and then maybe bring them, if that work session's good, bring them at the next meeting to get a recommendation so we can go through that process of making some low-hanging fruit updates, if you will. Like I also have another one that says that shutters should be equal to the size of the window instead of those, weird quarter shutters. Yeah, there were some influences, but I was thinking a good work session date would be 2 weeks from today. That would be April 8th, or any time in that week.
I will be out of town April 8th.
All right. What about the week before? Sorry, my bad. The week before HPC, which is on the 22nd. What about the week of the 12th through the 15th? We wouldn't be able to bring it to the meeting, but we'd finally get to have the meeting, and at least we could start moving forward. I would like to do it, I wish we could do it on the day of a meeting, but it looks like our agendas are always pretty packed recently. Well, I like to say light, but every time I think that, I get 4 or 5 applications I wasn't expecting. Right now, I'm expecting at least 3.
How many, 3?
At least 3.
Are you still going with the 3-week deadline?
That's one of the things I'd like to update.
okay.
I would like 4 weeks, and I'd like to add some language in there that's saying that you have to contact staff before submitting. That way I know it's coming too. I can kind of guide you through the process and give a little bit more direction before you submit major work items.
That's great.
I think that would be helpful in a lot of cases. Not strongly worded, like soft suggestion. You can't require people to do things, but yeah, 15th or somewhere in that week.
Send us a note.
I'll send you a note, okay? Is that cool? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Hearing.
Motion to adjourn?
May I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say
not so
aye.
sure about that.
Opposed, say nay. The motion
Let's
carries.
discuss
This
that.
meeting is adjourned.